Good evening, everyone. It is 6:01 p.m. We are at Cape Canaveral City Council regular meeting, May 20th, 2025, the City Hall Council Chambers at 100 Polk Avenue, Cape Canaveral, Florida. I call this meeting to order, and with that, Councilmember Jackson, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kellum.
Here.
Mayor Morrison.
Here.
And Councilmember Willis.
Here.
Council, thank you all for being here, and thanks to our city staff and anyone participating in the public. This time, we can approve the agenda as written or with any changes. Tonight, we have 3 under presentation, 2 proclamations, and some new city staff introductions. We'll go to public participation. Few items on the consent agenda, and 3 items for action, 2 public hearings, and 1 discussion item, ending with reports.
I make a motion we accept the agenda or approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Kellum, second by Councilmember Willis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk.
Councilmember Davis.
4.
Councilmember Jackson.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Kellum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
And Councilmember Willis.
4.
Okay, great. So with that, the agenda is approved as written. We are first into the presentation interviews portion of the meeting. We have 2 tonight. The first one here is the National Poppy Day Proclamation, and then we will do the Municipal Clerks Week. So first, I'd like to actually ask and request Mayor Pro Tem Kellum to have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a presentation of a proclamation declaring the week of May 21st to May 26th as National Poppy Day in the city of Cape Canaveral, encouraging the citizens of Cape Canaveral to wear a poppy before Memorial Day as a symbol of the sacrifices of our military that our military has made. The American Legion Challenger 7 Auxiliary Unit 348 of Cape Canaveral has been established approximately 36 years. Miss Mary Fish, the American Legion District 12 and American Legion Challenger 348 president, has been a member since 2010. She has been invited by the City Council to this meeting to receive the proclamation from the city to recognize May 21st to May 26th as National Poppy Days. I believe I speak for the council when I say thank you to the American Legion Auxiliary for their unwavering support of veterans, their family, our community. With that being said, on May 26th, the following events will be held. The American Legion Challenger Auxiliary Unit 348 Memorial Day Ceremony, in conjunction with the Veterans of Foreign Wars, will be held at 10 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Park at 212 Polk Avenue, Cape Canaveral. The American Legion Challenger Auxiliary Unit 348 Memorial Barbecue will follow at 12 noon at 105 Lincoln Avenue, along with the VFW Post 10131 Memorial Barbecue at 12 noon at 105 Long Point Road, Cape Canaveral. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Mayor.
I'll speak as loud as reasonably loud. An official proclamation of the City of Cape Canaveral, Florida. Whereas, for the last 36 years, the annual distribution of poppies by American Legion Challenger Auxiliary Unit 348 has been officially recognized and endorsed by government leaders. And whereas, on September 27, 1920, the poppy became the official flower of the American Legion family to memorialize the sacrifice of lives in war. And whereas in 1924, the distribution of poppies became a national program of the American Legion, and whereas poppies are assembled by disabled veterans, and the proceeds of this worthy fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of disabled and in-need veterans and the widows and orphans of deceased veterans. And whereas meeting the continuing needs of our veterans should be the concern of every American who values his or her freedom, and whereas the Challenger 348 Auxiliary Unit promotes the poppy as a symbol of the sacrifice our military has made, a symbol to open people's hearts and inspire them to donate, and whereas citizens are encouraged to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing generously to its support and accepting poppies during the days set aside for the distribution of this symbol to honor every service member who has died in the name of liberty, freedom, and democracy, while also showing their support for living veterans, service members, and their families. Now, therefore, I, Wes Morrison, Mayor of the City of Cape Canaveral, by virtue of the authority of said office, do hereby proclaim May 23rd to 26th, 2025 as National Poppy Days in the City of Cape Canaveral, and encourage the citizens and visitors of Cape Canaveral to wear a poppy as the symbol of support and gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms in which we continue to enjoy as Americans, signed and sealed this 20th day of May, 2025. Thank you. If you'd like to say a few words, and then the council, if you'd like to come down, we can take a draft as well.
I'd just like to say thank you all for accepting the poppy that I gave to everybody who came in. If you don't know why the poppy was chosen, it was because during World War I, many of our the soldiers died in a place called Flanders Field. And while as they laid there, the poppies grew from the ground. And so the poppy, the red of the poppy symbolizes the blood of those soldiers who gave their lives, but it also symbolizes the life that they gave those that they left behind, because they continued to grow. And so in 1919, the American Legion adopted the poppy as the flower, and the auxiliary started the year after that. And so we, as the auxiliary, accepted the poppy as the symbol for those who have given their lives for us, so that we can live in the country that is free.
On Monday, it will be Memorial Day. We will have services in our Veterans Memorial Park right out here at 10 o'clock. We invite the whole public of Cape Canaveral to come and support all the people that supported us to give us this land of freedom. Thank you.
It's they don't.
you again. We appreciate all the American Legion and our local VFW guys here for our community, and certainly appreciate the veterans. And Mayor Pro Tem Kellum, thank you very much. Okay, the next proclamation is for our city clerks, an official proclamation of the city of Cape Canaveral, Florida, whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public service areas, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link among citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, and whereas the municipal clerk served as the information center on functions of local governments and the community, and whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in educational programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, province, county, and international organizations, and whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Wes Morrison, Mayor of the City of Cape Canaveral, by virtue of said office, do hereby recognize the week of May 4th to May 10th, 2025 as Municipal Clerks Week in the City of Cape Canaveral, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Esther B. Colson, and to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent, signed and sealed this 20th day of May, 2025. Esther, please come down. Thank you.
Turn it on. There it is. Okay. Thanks. I'm good.
So the mics aren't working?
Oh, they're working.
Okay. All right. Let's do a sound check. Anything sound better?
Testing, testing.
Okay. Does
they
anyone
turn them
have
up?
trouble just hearing me, period? If I, at this level? Okay. I don't think the mics are on. The light is on. But maybe we can get it figured out. One technical question in regards to live stream, is that happening?
This is being recorded, yes.
It is, but is it being live streamed as well? I just
Is
need,
it?
just curious to know if
Yes,
they
Mike just
can hear
confirmed.
us from home. We can proceed with the meeting, and if there's, I guess, nothing really we can do about it, or if there's anything I can do, please let me know.
Right, okay.
I know someone that may be on, I can check.
They would-
Okay,
She's checking now. Yeah,
okay.
these should be on.
It seems that would be. Testing 1, 2, testing. Yes, test 1, 2. We the people.
1, 2, 3.
That one's.
Okay, so maybe it's ice. We have power. Test, test. That's got a little, it seems like. Testing 1, 2. Thank y'all for your patience as we work through
Testing.
this.
Yeah.
roll with it. If I need to pause for any reason, if it's okay, I'll just go proceed. Sounds like everyone here can hear. Okay, with that, that concludes the two proclamations. We have one more presentation, one I'm excited about. We are on item number 5C, new city staff introductions. It looks like we have 5 new members to the team and our interim city manager. I think.
Yes,
take it from
Mayor,
here.
it's my pleasure to introduce Tamsin Bell, our new Community and Economic Development Director. We're so glad she's here. And you were worth waiting for. Okay, she's finally here. And Chetty Henry, our Records Management Specialist and also Assistant City Clerk. And our other members aren't here, but they're new, Craig Brown and Paul Herr with the Parks and Rec Division. And that's it. So I would just like to say that the city's continuing to hire quality staff, and what is transgressed here and transcended in City Hall has just been absolutely wonderful in the last few months, and I'm so glad that we have so many quality employees. So, great job. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Welcome to the city of Cape Canaveral. We are thankful you're here, and interim city manager John, really appreciate you doing that, taking the brief moment.
Here we go. All right, there we are.
I'm going to say I appreciate you more often. Things start working. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, and yes, excited to get to know everyone a little bit better. So thank you. All right, I think we got power. All right. Yes. That concludes the presentations for today, and now we are on to public participation. I've got a few cards up here. If you do intend to speak, please go ahead and fill one out, and we'll make sure you're heard. The 4 cards here, I think Ms. Kim McCourt. Mr. McCourt, if you are ready, please come forward. Thank you so much, Kim.
Yes, thank you for having me today. My name is Kim McCord. I lived here for 3 years and went down to the beach several times, several hundred times, and never had one problem with anybody or any animals until last year. Can't really talk about it too close because I'll start to cry, but a dog mauled and almost killed my girlfriend. So here's a few things that I'd like to talk about. You guys have a dog problem. Dogs, dogs, dogs. I know some of you may not like part of this at all. I usually kept to saying that things like this that I worry about are really never going to happen anyway, so why worry so much? And that was true until the day we were attacked and nearly killed on the beach, Cape Canaveral, because I wasn't expecting a wild beast to come up out of the water and try to kill us. So I thought we'd come back to Cocoa and try to heal. Brought my family back here to come to this meeting so we could hear about the new dog laws. So I agreed to go down to the beach. My girlfriend steps onto the boardwalk. I think everything's fine. I step down to the water with my stepson. We look back, and there's a giant dog in our way going back to the car, so I have to make a decision. Who do I save now? Do I save my son? Do I run over there, save my wife? So I stepped over, and I told him, please take that animal off the boardwalk until we finish walking by. And the guy kind of hummed a little bit. So I told him in no uncertain terms, walk your dog off of here. I escorted him. We walked over. Family got in the van. There was nobody hurt that day. The dog was on the leash. And I'm going to run over if I don't hurry. That was at I can't remember exactly, and it's 4 times that we were stuck in this town, no way out, at a park, a beach. 4 times already, and I've only been here 2 days. Your animals are in the restaurants, they're in the Publix, they're on the road. Any transitional space that I walk now, I have to decide, who do I save first? Which one? I can only bring one family member now. I'm not coming back because I'm too scared to be here. As you assume, if you have to save a family member, it's going to stay with you forever. Thank you very much, council members.
Thank you, Mr. McCourt. This is a public hearing item, and you didn't finish. We will open it back up when we get to that item. And thank you for your courage to come forward and share that with us. The 3 more cards, I'm just going to double check. The other one, Mr. Brad Prevel, as I think the same topic, we'll stay on topic. If you'd like to speak now or at the public hearing, or both. Oh, that's fine. Yes, I think. Yes, we have 8 with, 8 A, B, and C. You're right. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for what you do for our community. Okay. I want everyone to know I am talking as a private citizen. Okay. I'm following up as per the CIP workshop number 2 that happened last week. It's just a follow-up. Just after Councilwoman Jackson volunteered to pressure wash the Manatee Park pavilions, didn't forget, she mentioned a very salient point, that when we build buildings or out parcels or whatever, we have to have in our budget funding for maintenance of those properties. She said, before we build any new buildings, we need to have that type of budget. With that being said, I do not believe we need a concession stand, whether it's going to cost $100,000 or $20,000 to be built at our Little League field. That money, and granted, in a $30 million budget, $50,000 is nothing comparatively, but we need to upgrade our facility at our Little League field. Why? One, a hot dog vendor isn't going to recruit new players to the Space Coast Little League. It's going to be the facilities. Who makes that decision? It's not the player. It's the parents of these 10 and 11 and 12 years old. It's also the player when you get to an older age. Isn't that so, Mr. Mayor? As your daughter, I'm sure, has found out, it's the facilities. We need to upgrade the foul line distances, put air conditioning into the press box, upgrade the dugouts, put shelves there so the kids could hang their batting helmets and their bags. Lastly, also, our field is so cool. It's like Wrigley Park. It's in the middle of a neighborhood, if you can make that comparison. But lastly, Sandpiper Park is in desperate need of repairs. At the meeting, everyone said they have not been at Sandpiper Park in a long time. That project has been kicked down the road several years. We need to upgrade that now. I know it's in the budget. I implore you not to allow that project get redlined due to maintaining our current tax basis. What's embarrassing about it? We have a crown jewel called the C5 building, and this disrepair park is right next to it. That should be our ultimate area to bring community activities to the green grass area and whatnot. And lastly, that will make the parents of our small children proud of our city and bring their grandparents to the park. And they also vote. Thank you.
Thank you. John Benton? Thank you.
Okay, so we know why I'm here. I'm here for a code reduction hearing. I've been asking for one for 10 years. And I started at the very beginning, and you're giving people you're handling code board issues yourself. Why can't I have a code board hearing, a reduction hearing? I wasn't even allowed to defend myself in there. And you had a lawyer helping you out. The lawyer sitting right over there, he knows I wasn't allowed to defend myself. Why didn't you fire that lawyer? She knows more than anything. If someone gets up and puts someone and accuses somebody of something, that somebody, me, gets to defend myself. He won't even defend his own lawyer. And you had the FBI come in. What did the FBI tell you? Yeah, you got the wrong guy. You shouldn't have done this to John because he was up that warehouse coming out on a private school, and that school was a Jew school. He's Jewish. That lawyer was Jewish. I can point that out. You can all be Jewish. I don't have any problem with you. I have a problem with this one.
John,
Shut your mouth, man.
John, you do that again, you're going to leave. Please
How about these people?
address me. If please,
What about these
please
people?
please refrain from and let John speak. And I'll pause your time there for 10 seconds.
I'm not racist against Jews. I'm just pointing out that there's 5 Jews. City
Please.
manager, the city mayor, Rocky Randalls. You said in those board meetings that you were handling that it's been going on for decades. Who was on the board for decades? Rocky Randalls was on the board. He said he knew I didn't live in that warehouse. I'm coming out on a Jew school in 1993, and I'm doing it again in 2014 because I missed some people. I'm sure the FBI told you that. I was sending that information to Judge Rainwater. My man went to jail in 93. I was supposed to testify against him. I didn't do it. That was to help the people then out. I didn't even know the people. And I'm going to get up there and testify about what that teacher did to me at the Jew school. He wasn't a rabbi. He was a Baptist. And Mrs. Weinberger fired him and had to change the name of her school. You wouldn't see a Catholic school doing that. They'd send him to the next school. She fired him. I say the lawyer found out that I was coming out on a Jew school and they don't like it. The same as a Catholic school. I'm a victim. I came out. 3 different schools, man. And that's what I was doing in my warehouse. I didn't live in that warehouse. I had a cop in the unit next to me. He was up there as much as I was. Kevin Mann, the one that came in and testified that I live in that warehouse, his son is a sex offender, and he was living in the warehouses. That's what the state of Florida said on the sex offenders list.
Talk louder, they can't hear you.
You gonna let that go on? You gonna let them call me out? You tell me I can't turn to the audience there, but Rocky Randalls did it. The last time he was in here, he turned around half the time. Let your lawyer defend himself.
Thank you. Rick? Is Rick here? Is it well? Hey, Rick, come on forward. Yes, I see. Thank you.
I just feel very mellow, simple. I'm just trying to get, I'm from Portside Villas, and we've been trying to work with the city and with the port on those big mounds of whatever aggregate or whatever it is. And I'm trying to get a follow-up as to where we stand on the barrier wall that was supposed to be erected and the landscaping that was supposed to be put in, because we're still in the dark as to what the status is and what the timeline is. If I could just get that clarified, please.
Thank you. I would defer to our interim city manager to potentially follow up with you. Have you reached out to any city staff at this time, or I know you haven't received an update, just if somebody has from the HOA organization
Our president, Michelle Height, was lead on it,
mhm.
and she was unable to make the meeting tonight, so I'm just kind of standing in her place as to,
Okay.
just to follow up and just try to get some clarification and see where we are in this process of mitigating the aggregate blowing over, because the mountains do seem to be getting bigger and bigger. They almost have snow on top. They're so high. I mean, they're just huge, and they seem to be getting bigger every couple of months instead of smaller.
Thank you
Yes, sir. That's
for sharing that.
That's all I have to say.
Council might want to say a few words if you don't mind, Councilmember Willis.
Well, I remember, and we discussed this earlier, that previous city manager and I believe previous community and economic development director was going to look into putting up some sort of barriers and having the aggregate company put up a barrier, put up some trees, et cetera, to block not only the view, but for any of that aggregate blowing over. So, and I remember also that they were going to put up sensors.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what Zach said he was working on that?
Yes, we've had a new community and economic development director. It looks like she's coming up, might be willing to share something with us. Do you want to come forward and speak? Thank you.
Should I stay standing or should I be seated? Or
Just step aside. We might need to, you are more than welcome to sit down, obviously, but I don't think, does the council have any more questions here for Rick?
Yeah, Tamsin, you could sit there and just turn a mic on.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Try to get you some answers.
Yeah, we just met about this briefly, and we're pulling all the department heads together, different agencies that are that are involved in this, and we're getting a response and responding to their permit requests. So we're on it, but just give me a moment. I just got here last week. Excellent.
Thank you. And as I remember the things I think Councilmember Willis was sharing, I think we all sat in meetings, and I heard, I think all of those as well. The communication with the president, I think, as Rick was saying, the HOA, I just wanted to make sure we were not communicating with one, and maybe it doesn't go past that, and if the residents there, obviously, any member of the public, you don't have to be the president of the organization to, I think, find out what's going on. But I can tell you the council here is concerned, and hopefully, once we get settled in,
Yeah.
we'll hear something. But thank you.
Yeah, preparing a response for that. Thanks.
Yeah, and Mayor, we'll elaborate on this in our meeting tomorrow morning that I have, okay, with staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tamsin.
Brad, I got a second card here for you as well. Okay, you want to take that when we get to it? Thank you, sir. Now I see what you were saying earlier. Okay, if anyone else spoke, that's all the cards I see. Please come forward or let us know. Okay, with that, we will go ahead and move on to the meeting. First is a consent agenda. We've got a few items here. I do have one question on one of them. It's on 7A1. I would like to pull the January 28th, 2025 special meeting minutes, which effectively is related to B as well, but it's just a quick question. So if we approve and no one wants to remove the April 15th, I think we can approve that. I'll tackle the question and we can go.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda 7A2.
And B or no?
Well,
No.
no, the mayor wanted to pull B.
Oh, okay. I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Willis, got a second by Mayor Pro Tem Kellum to approve consent agenda item 7A2. Any further discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk?
Councilmember Davis,
4.
Councilmember Jackson,
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Callum,
4.
Mayor Morrison,
4.
and Councilmember Willis.
4.
Passes 5-0. The minutes for the April 15th regular meeting. Jumping back up to item 7B, really, but it's related to A1 because it's an excerpt from it. Were there any changes from the last meeting to this one that we're aware of? I know that there was some just clarification that was needed, but I didn't go back and see it. Just wanted to see if there were any changes from the January 28, 2025 meeting that we saw last month in April, did not take any action on it, and the verbatim excerpt, which we saw there as well, to today's version.
I can speak to the minutes. There were some corrective changes that I addressed in the minutes on page 3. The verbatim transcript I can't speak to. I don't think there were any changes. I would ask the clerk. She's nodding no, there weren't any changes to the verbatim excerpt. It was just corrections to the January 28th special meeting to reflect what was actually occurred at the meeting.
Okay. Were they substantial generally, or where were those changes? I just,
On page 3.
okay.
Page 3 of the minutes, page 3 of 6.
Were they substantial changes or anything?
They were significant corrections.
Okay.
For example, the third paragraph starts with Mr. Morley
Yes.
was corrected, and so was the following paragraph.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Counsel, are there any other questions on this? I'm good. I think that this is just small, actually, and it might be intentional. On the verbatim minutes, the first line is, normally I don't need a mic, but for recording purposes, so I'm on the attachment 3, the verbatim. Mike is spelled like the name, but that's not anything, I don't think it needs to be changed instead of a microphone. I just didn't want it to be confused, and I don't think it could be, but if that was something that, I think the phonetics of it is Mike, but M-I-C, if that's even, that's not substantial. Thank you. Just wanted to point that out. Anything else?
I have one question.
Councilmember Jackson.
Under the section where it's giving the individuals that were in support of the existing city manager agreement, it lists Bruce Robertson. I believe he was not in support, so I think he should have been in the other group.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes a difference, but that's the only thing I found.
Yeah, I think any statement of support by a resident should be accurate. What page was that on?
That was on page
2 of attachment 1.
Thank you. Okay. So that would just be a matter of moving the name out of that group, the first group I see his name there, into
that next paragraph.
the next, is it, okay.
That next group.
Council, City Clerk, if that's something you could do, I think we could approve it with those changes, if that's okay with our city attorney. No reason to.
Yeah, I mean, it's council's minutes.
if the
and
council wants to make that change,
What occurred.
that it is to remove one of the names resident, specifically Bruce Robertson, down to the next group of people.
Yes.
Any issue with that, council? Do we want to do that? I feel like we have to.
I think I mean, we need to be accurate if we're doing this. You know, we've been working on these minutes for several months, and that one piece was not accurate.
Yeah.
So I think for accuracy's sake, we should.
Okay.
Turn.
Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, the ones that you said that you were changed, what was the reason for both of them? You said there was different changes of those. What were the ones?
Is that direct?
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't sure if she was referring to the names or
No,
talking about the
No,
changes.
that's on page 3. That you
Right.
said you wanted to change.
Well, they were changed. They were taken off at the last meeting, they were taken off the agenda, and paragraphs 2 and 3 were changed and modified to reflect what actually occurred. The original draft was I think, a little out of context. So I went back and listened to the recording several times and modified paragraphs 2 and 3 to reflect what occurred in proper context.
Okay. Councilmember Davis, was there? Thank you. Okay. If there's not anything else, I think the verbatim mic to mic is a change that I wouldn't say is substantial, but I think the bigger of the two was back in the minutes, as Councilmember Jackson pointed out. Was that clear on that change?
Yes.
Okay. With that, looking for a motion if there's anything else with the proposed changes.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda 7A1 and 7B as amended.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Willis and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Kellum to approve as amended item 7A1 and 7B. Any further discussion? These minutes were important, so thank you for working through it. City Clerk.
Councilmember Davis.
4.
Councilmember Jackson.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Kellum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
And Councilmember Willis.
4.
Motion passes 5-0. Now we're on to items for action. The first one, we have Resolution 2025-06 for the Community and Leisure Service Board member, James Stobie. And today it's a motion to consider the adoption of Resolution 2025-06, which appoints Mr. Stobie to the Culture and Leisure Services Board. As I understand it, Mr. Stobie is currently an alternate, and we had a resignation as explained in the agenda. Mr. Stobie is willing and able to step in to become a member. And I guess, Mr. Interim City Manager, is there anything else on this resolution?
No, sir.
Okay. Council, any questions on this?
No. I'll make a motion that we appoint Mr. Stobie.
We have a public comment on this one.
Okay.
You have a card.
You are, absolutely correct. Thank you very much. How could I have forgotten Mr. Prevel? This is what I thought. I called it a public hearing item, and I apologize for that. It's not a public hearing item. The floor is yours. Thank you, Councilmember Willis.
As many of you know, I am on the Cultural and Leisure Park and Rec Volunteer Board. I want to say that Mr. Stobie, as an alternate, has attended every meeting as an alternate, had no vote, showed up to every meeting. In addition, if there was questions that we did not know pertaining to pickleball, tennis, whatever, he was able to answer those questions from the audience. I think he would be a great addition to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Willis?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-06.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Willis, second by Councilmember Davis to approve the resolution as written. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk?
Councilmember Davis.
4.
Councilmember Jackson.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Callum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
And Councilmember Willis.
4.
Resolution 2025-06 passes 5-0. Thank you again, Mr. Stobie, for your commitment to the city. Look forward to your participation on that board. Yes. The next is item 8B, the city manager employment agreement. Motion to consider the approval of the interim city manager's employment agreement. Okay, thank you. I don't know, I think this is for the interim city manager. That just might be a title issue on the agenda item title. Right, it's the interim city manager employment agreement. I think the text of the agreement is all interim, just the title says city manager.
Right. It's only related to the current interim city manager contract.
Okay, thank you. So, the second we're going to that one, we have, Mr. Interim City Manager. I believe this one here is, well, it's submitted by our city attorney. Would you like to give us an overview or anything that we need to know?
Yeah, certainly. The interim city manager, if you recall, the current interim city manager contract had an expiration date on it. That date is soon approaching here. So this interim city manager, Mr. DeLeo, contacted me and would like to propose an extension of the interim city manager contract in light of the fact that the city's recruiting manager seems to be making some really good progress with the search for the permanent city manager. So Mr. DeLeo is requesting a couple of changes to the current contract. One of the changes is to extend the term to September 1, 2025. Unless sooner terminated by the city council. As you know, it'll automatically terminate once the council makes a permanent selection of a city manager. But Mr. DeLeo is requesting that it be extended to September 1, 2025. Again, in light of the fact that Mr. Bezinger seems to be making progress and is getting close to submitting candidates for the city council's consideration on the permanent position. The other change that's being proposed by Mr. DeLeo, I'll let Mr. DeLeo state his rationale, but he's requesting an adjustment in the annual salary that, of course, is prorated on a monthly basis as long as he's continuing to serve in the interim city manager position. So the updated salary is reflected in the first addendum that's in your package for consideration.
Thank you very much. John, our interim city manager, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
No, just requesting a $2,000 monthly salary increase. I currently am saving the city $15,000 a month in my capacity. I also do not take the city's health plan, which saves the city $18,000 a year. I do not take a car allowance like other city managers get. So keeping me on as the city manager at $2,000 additional a month seems like a pretty good deal for the city, and I'm willing to serve faithfully for this staff who's doing just a hell of a job, and that's all I'm asking for, and I'll continue to lead this staff, and I think the city, it's a win-win situation, and it saves the taxpayers a lot of money. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, council. This is an addendum to, we approved the agreement. This is an addendum to extend and to increase or adjust. Any comments here?
I approve everything he said.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Willis?
Well, I think John is leading us through a lot more than he originally signed up for, since we're moving further into the budget season. Originally wasn't planning on being in that position that long, but I think he's done an admirable job, even though he has an excellent staff working for him, and Cheryl has stepped up to help him. And I think it's well worth for the summer to increase it.
Thank you, Councilmember Willis. Councilmember Jackson?
Well, I almost am looking at a completely opposite approach than what was described in respects to the fact that we are just now getting candidates. And as I receive some of these candidates, I'm doing a little background of my own and taking a look. And I think that in order to move us forward and give us the time to look into these candidates the way that the council really needs to do, that it behooves us to have Mr. DeLeo handling these things during this interim period without us feeling rushed to make a decision, so that we can make a smart decision as a council. So with all that's on his plate, I'm in support of his extending this, because this is a lot of work he's got going on, along with the budget season and all of that. So I think it takes a little bit of pressure off of us as we move forward, investigating and looking at the candidates ourselves as well. We may not feel as rushed.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Mayor Pro Tem Kellum?
I agree with Councilmember Jackson. I think John's doing an awesome job. He's got a lot on the plate. A lot has happened in the last few months. And for us to feel comfortable hiring a new city manager, which is a big thing, and we have a great guy in place and a great staff, so I'm for the raise.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Kellum. I support the council and our interim city manager as well. I think that one of the things that I'm also looking at to add to what's already been said is the finance director position has, I mean, that's obviously your primary position, but now the primary is interim city manager. Is there an estimate on when the the deputy finance director, I guess, is there some hiring going on in that department as well?
I think you're talking about the deputy city clerk, right? Because I have a finance manager, Cheryl.
Yes.
Joey is a senior accountant who is progressing extremely well, and I think I could confidently tell the council that on at his 2-year point, he would have got through 2 budgets and 2 audits and doing extremely well. I would see his promotion being February 5th of next year to deputy finance director. He's right on track there.
And you were right on the
Deputy
for
City Clerk, that we are, what we're doing right now is we're looking for a Deputy City Clerk, but we may recategorize it to an assistant to the city clerk, because there's not a lot of deputy city clerks that actually exist out there. And what we're finding is it may be more practical for the city to go to an assistant to the city clerk, because that person needs to be groomed into that position to learn those type of duties. And currently, Chetty has come on board as our record manager, but he is assisting the city clerk, as you can see, right now. So that's the plan, and we are conducting interviews, and we're hoping that this all comes to fruition. So that's what we're doing right now. We're aggressively pursuing this, and let me just say this in history, so you just know this. Is when Mia Goforth came to work for the city, she was an administrative person who became the, Cheryl, correct me, did she become the deputy city clerk, or did she just become the city clerk when Angie left? Okay, she became the city clerk. And Daniel, who was the who became deputy city clerk, he came to us as an administrative person too. So if we could find a strong administrative assistant person who is willing to be motivated to take on these duties, Esther will train them, and that person will come on at that level, which is more here, Mayor, than up here. So the city could benefit in many ways. So we're going to find somebody. It's a difficult position to fill, but we think we're getting much closer. And in the meantime, we have Chetty here who's helping Esther. We have Kelly in finance who's helping Esther. And Lisa is anything that Esther needs that Lisa could perform and administratively. So we're working as a team. So we're okay, but we need to get that position filled.
Thank you for that and the update. It's one thing to be the interim city manager during budget, as stated, as finance director, to step out and then not having. I mean, organizations are always hiring, but over the past 6 months, we know that the positions that were hired, we met 5 tonight. Some of those at the director level you're not taking over a fully operating team. There's a lot of new faces, and I appreciate you onboarding them, continuing to communicate those to the city council, and I support this. I think it's a very, very good move for us.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add too, is what the council, I know they realize, but what the public needs to realize is when you fill so many new positions and bring on many talented people, regardless, there's an adaptability factor, there's a settling in factor of getting familiar with the issues and whatever. This is a process. Doesn't happen like the click of a hand, but when you have dedicated people, we'll get there, and we'll get there rapidly. So I just want to let you know that.
Thank you. Okay, this is item 8B, council. I've heard from everyone. If there's not any other comments, I think we've got, did we have the motion?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation for the increase for the city manager's employment agreement.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Jackson, second by Councilmember Davis. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Councilmember Willis.
This is an addendum to a contract, not just a promotion. I mean, not just a salary increase.
Yes.
Okay.
Increasing term and salary.
Okay. Anything else? City Clerk?
Councilmember Davis.
4.
Councilmember Jackson.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Kellum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
And Councilmember Willis.
4.
Motion passes 5-0 on item 8B, interim city manager employment agreement. We are now on to item 8C, which is the kayak paddleboard eco tour lessons and rentals contract. A1A Management LLC, doing business as A1A Beach Rentals. Mr. Interim City Manager, do you want to, obviously, we've give us a
Molly.
introduction,
Molly.
This is.
whoever he thinks. If Molly's,
We're doing the
yeah,
motion,
absolutely.
Staff's recommendation to approve the contract for recreational franchise for the provision of kayak/paddleboard, eco tours, lessons and rentals to A1A Management LLC at Banana River Park and Washington Avenue Beach Crossover, and authorized interim city manager to execute the agreement. Mayor, if we need any detailed explanation or extra information on this, Molly Thomas, our Director in Parks, Rec, and Cultural Affairs, will come up and could speak of it. Would you like that?
I mean, I've read through it and know if it's helpful, absolutely.
Well, you want to just give a short synopsis of what this all means for the city and that kayak service?
All right. So as it kind of outlines on the summary sheet, it's against city code for people to do business on public property. So at some point in the history of the city, they decided to make certain allowances and a mechanism for people to provide services that the city isn't necessarily able to provide themselves for either staffing reasons, liability reasons, so on and so forth. And that is evident in Chapter 54-6 of the city's municipal code, which is provided as an attachment. Historically, the only recreational franchises that have been around, and I can only speak to the last 11 years of the history on this, Anthony may be able to speak to more because he's been around a little bit longer. But the only recreational franchises that have been around since I've been here is an ice cream vendor on the beach. There was one. There's been the kayak and paddleboard company that is actually the same one being recommended today, and a surf instructor that was out on the beach, Sandy Beach, which was here when I first started. When I inherited the department in 2022, I realized that the recreational franchise agreement had not been updated, adjusted, etc. No one had done anything with it. Obviously, there was a pandemic kind of in the middle there, so here nor there. When I spoke with the city attorney to see what needed to be done, it was his recommendation to put it out for another competitive opportunity for people to submit proposals. We received 2 of those. Obviously, one was more robust than the other, and the companies that submitted were all told that they needed to meet the minimum of what we were asking for, that they were welcome to suggest other things and propose other items. It is their business, so, if they have better things to bring to the table, they're more than welcome to, but it's beholden on this council to either allow or not allow those items. And Mark is here, who is the general manager, and he can come up and speak to any questions that you have regarding their proposal.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for
Thanks, Molly.
Councilmember Willis?
No, not any direct questions for Molly, but she'll probably need to.
I'll stay close.
Yes, please. So,
Okay. Thank you, Molly. Okay, so this is what went out to bid. We had 2 responses, A1A Beach Rentals. Mark, you want to come forward and just give us we obviously read your submission and packed it, but if there's anything, you've been doing this for 7 years, I think, for the city?
I believe it's been 11 years that we've actually been doing this at Banana River Park.
Thank you.
And we are a company that is dedicated to making sure that we are quiet observation with the animals that are there. We are very respectful to the area. It's trying to make sure that we're able to show tourists and locals how to interact with these natural environments without causing any damage to them. Because it's a public launch, anyone could go out there with the manatees, go out in the mangroves, and unsupervised, they could cause damage, they could cause harm. So part of our reason for being there is to try to make sure that's not happening, that we are respectfully interacting with the beautiful nature that we have here in Cape Canaveral to share. It is a big part of our business model that we have been doing this for so long. It has become a really robust program for us. And in our packet, we did include some other things that we haven't currently been doing, and a hope to logistically make this easier for not just our business, but for the community at large. To be able to store kayaks in a very respectful way there at the park, so that we could facilitate things in a way that we don't have to necessarily be on A1A trucks using more gasoline, causing more traffic. As an ecotourism company, we were hoping we could not only continue with our contract as we've been doing it for the last 11 years, very respectfully to the city, but maybe expand upon that a little bit. But in all, we're just looking to continue doing what we're doing. Show people the beautiful stuff that we've got to show here in Cape Canaveral, and have them interact respectfully with the nature that we have here.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Councilmember Willis?
Yeah, Mark, thank you for coming. Do you provide just paddle boards and kayaks without supervision?
There is paddleboards and kayaks that are provided that are not a guided tour. However, it's not without instruction. It's not without any kind of recourse for bad behavior. So we definitely provide instruction upon the rental of that equipment, how they're supposed to interact with the environment, and then we do inspect that at the end of their rental.
Do you have any type of a waiver?
We certainly do.
Okay, does that cover trespass and
Trespass?
yes, trespassing on private property outside of the Banana River
Okay.
and the
Are you
park?
Speaking specifically about the Puerto
Yes,
del Rio condominiums?
yes, I am.
Yeah. I don't know that we have that specific language in there as it currently stands, but it would be something we would very happily put into a waiver and make sure that that's not something that's happening from our clientele. It's not something we're encouraging by any way whatsoever, and we wouldn't want people doing that. If you have found that it's been a problem, we definitely would love to address it.
Okay, well, it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed on more than just PDR, because it needs to be addressed on the beaches and any other private property to the south. So it needs to be looked at and instructed and informed your clientele. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mark this time? Yeah, Councilmember Jackson?
Were there any of the new guidelines that caused you any heartburn? I haven't gotten a good handle on ones that were old and any that changed.
I don't know necessarily that there's huge changes in any of what was put out guideline wise. What I saw basically is essentially extending the agreement as we had it currently anyway. There were a couple of things that we had hoped maybe we could expand what we're doing. For instance, maybe being able to deliver beach equipment to Washington Avenue. Not necessarily have a permanent space out there or anything like that, but just as a way to offer more to our customers. We also had hoped maybe that we could, in response to Councilmember Willis's concern, we did want to have a staffed kiosk there at Banana River Park for that kind of supervision, to make sure we don't have things like trespassing, to make sure that when there are kayak and paddleboard rentals, that there is someone there to make sure that it is being done respectfully and the clientele is doing as they were instructed. But otherwise, I didn't see that there was additional restrictions added to what the original agreement was anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Mark. Got a question on the minimum services. Molly, you had spoke about this that were asked, where I think eco tours and kayak rentals.
Yeah, the RFP specifically asked for qualified firms with demonstrated expertise and currently involved in providing individual, group, paddleboard, kayak tours. And it went on to, that's the announcement. Yeah, the requirements were licenses, permits, insurance requirements, and services to be provided, description of services, franchise fees, security.
Mm-hmm.
But it specifically speaks to the rental of paddleboard, kayak, and the equipment, and also to do eco tours themselves.
The RFP.
Yes,
In that section that,
it's like a 30-page document.
so the rentals, tours and rentals of those. And then you were explaining, I think Mark alluded to, adding, I saw, I think it was in their proposal, more services and/or rentals. And the current rental inventory provided by A1A, is that all? We got 140 bikes, 20 e-bikes, 50 surfboards, 50 stand-up paddle boards, 40 kayaks.
So if you look at the back page of the agreement where it says Exhibit A, what's outlined on there was what was requested as part of the RFP. And the bottom section is, and these are all subject to your approval or disapproval, whatever you would like to do, because we can amend this document. If you would like to allow for staffed kiosks, equipment storage on site, providing surf lessons, because that's actually mentioned specifically in the code as something separate. And that's the code, not necessarily this. Providing the chair and umbrella canopy, concessions, delivery to any city park, and then delivery of e-bikes or regular bike rentals. Those are all things that you can choose as the governing body to either add or leave off of this agreement.
Okay, so Exhibit A, scope of services, page 14 of 14 of the agreement between the city and the vendor. The first bullet, as you said, delivery of kayak, paddleboard, surfboard rentals. This is it's the last page in the whole packet, or for this item, not the whole packet. Those specific items, kayaks, paddleboards, surfboards, anything outside of that, all the other inventory is not allowed in the agreement?
As it is written now, but that is
Okay.
up for you guys to decide. If you guys would like to expand the available services that they can provide to residents and visitors, that's completely up to you. We only asked them to propose the minimum that was required.
And prior to this, we allowed the delivery of kayaks to Banana River Park,
Yes,
and same with paddleboards and surfboards?
well, not surfboards, but
Paddleboards, I guess.
essentially. The only thing that's changed is the access that's been for the beachside access, because there is a demand for that on the ocean side.
So adding Washington Avenue as a place where those kayaks, paddleboards, and surfboards can be delivered is
Yes.
new?
That's the only thing that's new.
Okay. And then the hosting for Banana River, hosting kayak paddleboard tours, that was a minimum service requirement that we're adding Washington Avenue to that, or has that always been?
Washington Avenue is the only thing that's new in this agreement.
Okay, got it.
Because
So-
prior to that, they did not have any oceanfront access, and you live over there. There's a lot of people that do enjoy paddleboarding on the ocean.
So limited to kayaks, paddleboards, and surfboards to be delivered to Banana River Park and Washington, or hosting at Banana River or Washington,
Right,
the guided tours.
yes.
All equipment rentals and guided tours shall occur during posted hours, and then obviously all the other provisions.
And in the past, we have granted them permission for after-hours access to the park to enjoy the bioluminescent tours.
And it specifies at the bottom of Exhibit A, delivery of bike or e-bike rentals to any city park or city property under these terms is one of the prohibition, right? It's prohibited.
As it stands, as it's written now.
And umbrellas, canopy, concessions. So it's not just silent on it, it prohibits it. So thank you. I think that's all I have. Council, is there any other questions right now?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Kellum?
In the packet, it's the City of Cape Canaveral RFP proposal review. Where do they come from? Who does that? Where did?
That was a staff review?
The committee?
Staff review, okay. And so the elements that are proposed that exceed the minimum requirements are the residential areas will not support kiosks and no storage facilities allowed. And that's what they're wanting to do, A1A, right?
Those were things that were proposed actually by both companies.
Okay. So this is, after the RFP went out and you get the RFP, then the staff takes a look at these and then rates each company with these.
Yes, taking into consideration the items that were listed. Let's see what page that's on. There was a list of codes that Anthony put in there of things that we needed to take into consideration. That included things like public comments, I don't even know where it's at.
Was this in the agreement?
Yes.
Or,
It's not. It's the 54-5, section B.
54?
Chapter 54 of the Parks and Rec Department.
She's talking about the city code provision.
Yes, here it is.
That's at the beginning
So
of the
page
package.
7 of 24. In addition, pursuant to section 54-5B of the city code, and selection committee and city council should consider the following criteria to the extent applicable, and these criteria can be used as material factor in determining the scoring criteria stated above. The effects that the proposed franchise would have on the public's use and enjoyment of the city's beaches, the effects of the proposed franchise would have on public safety, the performance history of the proposed franchisee, if any, the environmental impacts of the proposed franchise activities, public input, the ability of the bidder to comply with the minimum requirements of the franchise, prices offered for the sale of food and beverages, which doesn't really apply to this particular vendor, and any other criteria deemed relevant by the city council.
Thank you.
Another question.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
So this company, A1A, is asking for more services to the public. And for the fee of $500 a year, is that something that is, I mean, if they're going to do more services, shouldn't they have to pay more for the yearly franchise fee?
Anthony and John may be able to provide more history on the fee structure for the franchise agreement. When I started with the city, $500 was a number that was just in there. I did not find anywhere where it specifically stated that number in the code. So I don't know if that's something, I mean, obviously council is responsible for setting all fees associated with city business of this nature, but I don't know where the $500 number came from. It's just always been there.
Anthony, do you know how we came up with $500? And if we gave these people the franchise, wouldn't, because they're offering more services, wouldn't we have to raise the franchise fee? I mean, more services should cost more money.
I mean, the franchise fee is negotiable. I don't know where the 500 originally came from. I think, Molly, too, the 500 fee in the past has just been a one-time
Yeah.
fee, and wasn't
Annual.
annually?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I've been here 12 years, and there hasn't been many, vendor contracts, the hot dog person on the beach or whatever, and that's the only number I could recall that it's ever been, is if somebody was going to do something with a $500 franchise fee. I would say, based on what I know, even going back 12 years in the first couple of years when they were doing some of this, is that I think that's just the amount that the previous rec director, called a recreation director at that time, put into that agreement. I don't know of anything outside of that would have, so it was something I think that was done by the previous rec director. I don't recall anything. So if we were to adjust the fee higher, if we felt like we should, and I kind of agree with the mayor pro tem about, depending on how expanded the services are and what have you, then that's probably something that would need to be worked into our fee structure in our code. It would seem that would be what we would do, because right now, I don't think there's anything in there. But if we want to go beyond the 500, but that just was like arbitrarily put in there by
It probably
the rec
goes
director.
back to Robert.
It does, but the first I had heard of it, of course, is when I first start working here. That would be, the first one was 2014, the year after I was here. I think Gustavo had something going on
I
on the
notarized
beach.
that contract as the senior secretary for the Leisure Services
Yeah,
Department.
so that's my historical recollection, Mayor, of the, of that amount.
yeah,
Another
it's not a
question.
fee, it's not a fee established by the code.
No.
I mean, the code authorizes the franchise fee, but the amount is not established in the code. So, it's something that's negotiable and put into the franchise agreement.
Another question is, they showed the business tax receipts from Cocoa Beach and the business tax receipt from Cape Canaveral. Ours is $50, and theirs, Cocoa Beach, is $109.75. I think that's something that needs to be increased as well. I mean.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that was included in the previous community development director. We always got to see the previous directors, but they had updated a fee schedule not too long ago. I don't know if it included that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah,
but
that's,
go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. DeLeo, that's an issue that's outside the scope of this item.
All right.
The BTR fee has its own statutory process that has to be followed to make any adjustments to BTR fees.
Okay.
So, while there may be a difference in this particular case for this type of vendor, opening up that issue is outside the scope of this item.
It's a separate issue. altogether.
Totally separate, and it's actually more comprehensive than may meet the eye, because it's going to bring into all the other BTR fees that the city
Right.
currently has.
Okay. I think that's all I have right now, Mayor.
I got a quick question. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The other vendors that you mentioned, there's a surf lesson school.
Yeah, there used to be a surf school run by a gentleman by the name of Sandy Beach.
Yeah, okay, that was before. But currently, we do not have any surf lessons.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, no franchise agreements. I'm sure
Okay,
there's
so
people
no
out there.
franchise agreements, but if you
This is
see
a bad
somebody out
question.
there, you can always call code enforcement.
So, and then the ice cream vendor, is that active franchise agreement?
There is no current active.
So
franchise
currently, we
agreement.
have no franchise agreements on the beach.
No.
Banana River Park franchise agreement, though, with A1A, been doing an excellent job for the years on that location. So this franchise renewal expands locations, it doubles the locations, but my concern is not, I am very thankful for A1A to continue. I hope that Banana River Park continues. But when we open up the beach, in one technical question, it mentions, I think in our RFP, that spells out that this is not exclusive by any means.
Correct. It is not exclusive.
The council reserves the right to award, we can have multiple franchise agreements per.
Yeah, the council, the existing policy in the code, at one point, and I have to look for it, I thought there is a cap, right? Council sets the number, so. but
On how many?
On how many franchises can exist?
Yeah, I think more than one is really, and if there is a cap, if it's 2, 3, I think that, but when we do not execute, right, another franchise, a second agreement, it has the effect of exclusivity. And I think it has had the effect of exclusivity despite being able. I've spoke to residents and who've approached me. Obviously, Molly, you know, I've talked about surf schools in the past, and we've all seen about wanting to rent things, not provide tours, surfboards. And I've always said, you know, right now there's really nothing on the beach. We've got franchise agreements, but if the trade, if you will, is, you know, $500 plus requirements for these services in exchange for this location, and then we add another location, I am pausing on the beach right now. But I would say if we did move forward with both, I would want to, because the bid went out for those, both of those locations, though, right? Specified that. But when we start not even talking about eco tours, the primary business, or the things that A1A has provided or the other company proposed, but when we start adding in, like you said, we can do it, I'm reluctant to add those things in, because there is, I think, an opportunity to provide the highest level of service for the community, to make the residents aware. And we're opening up the beach now. I don't know a lot about the trespass concerns on that side, but I go a little bit the other way. I'm not even as much interested in the $500. It's not a big revenue generator. Maybe it needs to be more, maybe not. But I'm more concerned about not how much we're bringing in, but how much we're actually giving up. So we're giving basically access to these 2 locations, and I would lean towards not increasing the fees. If anything, I think local businesses like that can come in, that's $500 they put back in their business. But I also, on the other hand, would want to allow more than one company to provide services. And if there's a way that we could put it out, let other companies come back in, and to say one or the other, because I don't think the $500 is the motive. It's about improving the quality of life for residents here. So I'd say almost get rid of the 500 or make it nominal, just talking out loud here, and sort of maybe put another bid out that's more specifies other things after really talking to the community about providing those services. Because the city, looking at kind of, when we're looking at just at Banana River Park, that's one thing, but now we're opening it up over here. And I know I've had a lot of comments over the 7 years about being able to provide lessons and rentals to the beach, not tours, rent chairs, umbrellas, and it's like, you can't do that. Well, now if we're gonna consider that, I would certainly want to open those types of services up and potentially entertain more than one vendor. And people can choose who they go through, but we also don't want $500 in return, sort of buying that exclusivity. That's just something, I mean, the big franchise agreements are obviously FP&L and Waste Pro. And we did that with the dumpster rentals where we opened that up. Similar here. Primary services, A1A's done an excellent job for us, but those are my concerns. It's not exclusive. We can add other vendors on how we administer it, whether that makes sense. Maybe there's things I'm not thinking about, but that's what I wanted to share with the council today, is to kind of think the other direction. It's that effect of exclusivity that concerns me most. So, thank you.
I have one thing.
Councilmember Jackson?
As you were talking about opening it up for more vendors, and I know A1A is our current vendor, right? And I'm not saying this is happening with any kind of payment involved, but there is someone in our city that uses a golf cart and a trailer and takes all the beach gear to the beach access and sets up for people. I don't know who that is, if they're, but from what I'm hearing, we have no other vendors other than A1A. Someone in the city is doing that. I don't know if it's one of the hotels providing the service or things like that. So as we look at doing these things, if we have someone doing it, let's say it's someone from a hotel or an Airbnb even that has more than, X number of units that's in the middle of the island, I don't think that we should turn down people that are wanting to provide those services to our cities, that need to pay someone to do them, because we clearly have someone doing it. I see it almost every day. Mm-hmm. And they go down Central, down Richwood, and 2 different access points with all the gear, and then at night they bring it all back. So I think when you're looking at the people that are trying to utilize the beach, and the fact that we don't have basic amenities like a restroom, where we're taking a lot of this gear. It's not like we're taking it to Cherry Down, where there's facilities for people to use. And so I think when we're looking at that and looking at expanding, we don't want to, if it's already happening, we need to consider that. I think it would be smart to look at where we allow that to occur so that it is within a short distance to Cherry Down, where people have facilities that are needed, because we have the end of the boardwalk for all of them, and it's not like Cocoa Beach where there's a quick walk to a restroom, where there's someone that's going to, be there if they need something to drink, or we're more unmanned without lifeguards, except for in those Jetty Park and Cherry Down Park areas. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to look at that if we're expanding that out. But I don't think that we should hinder someone from doing business because someone is doing it. Whether they're charging for it or not, that might just be part of their stay for their guests if they're a vacation rental, mm-hmm. but it's clearly already occurring. I mean, people see it all the time. I see them all the time.
Thank you for sharing that. Councilmember Willis, can you explain a little bit about the trespass issues
We've had a number of residents witnessing people getting out of kayaks, crawling up on the coquina revetments, and if somebody falls on it, mm-hmm. our HOA gets sued. Can't have that. We've had a number of people that have tried to gain access to condominiums, the building, because the restroom is on the far end of Banana River Park. So there's things happening. So, that I've only witnessed a couple, but I hear from everybody in PDR. So But to your point about additional vendors, we have to be careful because we don't want to create a scenario where we've got vendors contending for their corner or their beach access that is more widely used than another. And you could have some issues with who gets there first and you're on my spot, you know, who knows? And we really, and to Councilmember Jackson's point, we really need to get a handle on who all's doing what. Because anybody can load up 10 chaises and take them down to the beach and sell them for, or, you know, rent them for whatever. So, you know, do we want the Wild Wild West on our beach, or do we want to control it and make it civil? So.
And truly, in addition to Councilmember Willis's comment, if we're going to award a franchise to one of our vendors, I mean, we see now that our seasons for snowbirds and travelers are becoming more normal again since the pandemic. So as far as rentals are concerned, we have people, it starts tapering off right about to the end of July, mid-August maybe. Then it's really slow from then till right before Christmas. So if we're allowing a vendor to have a franchise, but we start going in with too many vendors, there's not going to be the travel to support all their businesses. So I don't think that we should either, should set them up to be undermined either with total numbers. So, you know, I think we need to be careful about that, although I understand it's, you know, we're this place that likes competition in the world these days, right? But, you know, we don't want to set them up to fail and have them where they're fighting for a spot. And especially with the vendor that we've given a franchise to that's had a long-term relationship with us and provided services.
Yeah, I think, yeah, commercializing the beach, having a market on the beach is something that we're a residential beachside community. This, I think, recognized that. The bid went out, identified probably the most commercial street on our beach, Washington Cherrydown Park, if you will, and it makes total sense. I think that if there's anything, there's vendors that can have the $1 million of liability insurance and all the other requirements that you spelled out. I mean, I went to the extent of uniforms and presentation, which I thought was really good, and obviously having skin in the game, the $500 annually, that's cost, and you know they gotta rent quite a few to do that. But the smaller vendors, right, would, if there's in the future a carve out for smaller ones, that we can still put the hurdle out that maybe isn't as high because it's not needed. Giving a tour on a paddleboard, you know, out in the water when bad things can happen, stingrays, jellyfish, and little sharks and gators in some of those backwater areas. But nevertheless, when you're renting like a lawn chair, or I don't know what that, or you know, that to me, you can go too far. I don't want that either. But if they come with a reputable business, we might have a few options for people. And I do love the fact that local people who live in Cape Canaveral, who can follow city procedures, provide minimum, you're not just going to come in with nothing, could take advantage and make side income without doing what I think we're all concerned over, is turning into corners and spots. Maybe it doesn't fail, or maybe it fails, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I just wanted to share that we've done this at 500 and kind of went through. Now we're doing something we haven't done before with Washington. I feel very grateful for A1A. I hope that we can move forward with the tours and the things like that on the Banana River side. And if the council desires to move forward with Washington, I just approach that one with a little bit of caution. Because we really haven't been here before, and stepping back, looking at all the vendors, all the types of services we want to allow on our beaches. And so if anything, I would want to shorten this agreement to not 3 years if we're going to go all in, or partially move forward with just Banana River and maybe the tours only. But when we start adding the other services in, renting, I want those services to be provided. So, yeah, considering a few other options, or maybe having a local, smaller vendor carve out and we test it for a 6 month or a year, or for seasonal periods only. 4 to 5 people, surf schools, surf instructors, chair rentals, some lessons, not tours, have said, we want to do that. And so I'm excited that we're here, but we're about to move forward with something that sort of, hey, the bid was put out there. I just think that the hurdles are so high and unreasonable because they're not providing the tour, the full service, and they don't need all that.
Anthony could probably give a little bit of clarity on it, but I'm pretty sure that at any point, where regardless if it's a bid, RFP, or RFQ, council reserves the right to either accept services or not. So if you don't want to accept Washington, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, you can just say no Washington for now, and then we can address the bigger picture of this now that we finally have a community and economic development director, because a lot of this will fall on them because Parks and Rec has no means of enforcement. And enforcement in this is 99% of the problem.
And Mayor?
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to make a statement. I think as I look at these, the rental inventory that he has, that A1A has, wouldn't this be a great topic to bring up at our business economic development meeting this week?
I was thinking the same thing.
Where we can hear from citizens, what would you like to be able to use? Because there might be someone that is a senior that lives a block off the beach, doesn't have a problem getting to the beach, but has a problem carrying all their gear down there once they get there. So this might be a really good thing to put before them as far as for the beach side, so that we can find out from our citizens, what services do you want?
Mayor, if I could just bring up another element, and Molly, maybe you could jump in here. This gentleman here is going to run a business from a specific location, but there's others, and you were bringing this up, Councilmember Jackson, and this concerns me, is that we're in the mayor, whether it was the mayor of Donna, I can't remember, fighting for, a location. Now, he's got a franchise that's going to work right there at those specific locations, where if you have other vendors who decide to go up and down the beach, that would be a whole different situation as far as mobile, because they were there that day and the hot dog guy's down there now, or this person's there, and they're setting up the chairs on 5th Street, but now they're over at 8th Street, where this gentleman's running a specific business in a specific location that's been authorized, approved by the city. His situation is extremely different than people bringing stuff in the beach. And then bringing up the thing about with the Airbnbs, I know there are Airbnbs close to where I live, and outside of them, there's 10 of those motor scooters parked out because that's part of the thing, or they have a golf cart, and what the other thing concerns me is somebody who says, well, if you pay us $50 more a night, you could take these 10 kayaks with your family out to the river or something. So the control, I believe the control, like with this gentleman here, is there because the city is controlling that. But even with those people who are vendors on the beach, like that would have to be specific, because they could be all over the beach. And now we're losing control, and then the floodgates are open. I just thought I'd bring that element up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments at this time?
Well, we have 17 beach crossovers.
Mm-hmm.
So to your scenario about the elderly person wanting to walk over to the beach, we're going to have 17 different vendors in order to, I mean, I'm not, just to put it in some context, you would need the ability to be in 17 different locations to satisfy that potential customer. Whereas A1A comes from a central location, drops off whatever, wherever, and we'll pick it back up. So, I mean, that business model, to me, makes it cleaner for the city. We could have multiples.
Mm-hmm.
You could have every one, but not set up on the beach.
Right.
But just deliver to a location.
That's what I'm saying, is the delivery business can be maybe a smaller carve out, that if you want to do it the right way, the way that, whatever that we want.
And our 17 beach crossovers don't really have a location to store items, in my opinion. So I think the business model of bringing it to a location, to a person, and I'm sure collecting a fee to make sure that chaise doesn't walk off, but that model to me makes more sense.
Well, and someone is already using that model. I'm not sure if they're getting paid or not, but it's pretty successful. 'Cause every morning he's going down Ridgewood with the whole, the golf cart loaded up and the trailer. So it is a successful thing. And then when you think about resorts and what people want when they come to a city, and this could be someone from a hotel as well, they want, when they're on vacation, do you want to have to drag all your stuff out there? Or do you want to call and say, we're going to spend a day today at the beach. Can we get an umbrella, a beach umbrella, and an awning? We'd like an ice chest. We're going to bring our food with us. And whatever they need be set up for them, and they just go and sit down and enjoy. And then when they're done, they let them know and they go and leave. Because a lot of times on vacation, they're also going to Sebastian Inlet, and they're going to Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge and out to Kennedy a day and all that. So it's not every day is a beach day. But people like the convenience when they're on vacation. So, and that's whether they're a cruise port person that's here for one day or someone coming in for a week.
Mr. Mayor, can I add one thing to the dialogue, since you're looking at this from like the 40,000 view? If you recall the lady that complained about the tour bus that showed up in front of her house, do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
She lived on Ridgewood. She called complaining that a surf school literally brought
Yes.
a tour bus in front of her house.
I do
I
remember.
would be on the phone myself if that showed up in my neighborhood.
Mhm.
One of the challenges, because like I said, please give me a badge and a ticket book any day. I will take it, I promise. But I don't have the means to enforce that. So that falls into code enforcement and law enforcement. When I was trying to explain what she had relayed to me about her concerns, the response that I got from the code enforcement officers that were here at this time was there's a very big gray area because of the way our code is written. There's no teeth to it. So when you say doing business on city property, the challenge in that is, what if the business takes place, the act of transferring money takes place online, in a brick and mortar on the other side of the road that they pay their property taxes and business tax receipts, and then they're just bringing the stuff. So when that code enforcement officer was asked to see if he could go out and catch them, because just like dogs on the beach, we have to catch them. That was the first thing he noted was, well, this is kind of a gray area because I don't know where the business transaction is taking place. So I think the bigger conversation might need to go hand in hand with a code adjustment.
Thank you for that. And I do remember that, and I understand. Yeah, because I looked into that as well. I think it's, physical locations selling any products or services directly on the beach. That's something we haven't really seen. The ice cream we've seen coming, and certainly I've seen surf schools operating, but delivering it to the site, delivering during the things that, like Councilmember Jackson was saying, chairs, beach equipment, those things are great. I think the Airbnbs are going to do it. I don't think we can really control that or stop that. But we're taking people out on tours, A1A, on behalf of really their company and as a service provided to the city. I want to be clear, I am for A1A to move forward at either location. But when we started saying adding you see the inventory of the other services, I think we should do those services. I just don't know if that's strictly A1A beach rental for this RFP for that franchise fee.
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, should we move forward with just the park or the riverside for now, since there's so many unknowns on the beach side? Because I really think that needs to be hammered out for us to know how we can move that forward. I think Washington's a smart location because we do have the park there. But I think, as I said, there's going to be people that just want chairs set up and what they need. But I think we need to take a look at how it's going to be set up, controlled, what the code is, and how, and once again, someone said it, who's doing it now, Maybe that was you, Councilmember Wills, but I think we need to hammer some of that stuff out before we move forward on the beach side.
Are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
I will probably have to recuse myself from this vote because the guy with the golf cart and the little thing is my nephew. He has a business license here in the city. He pays business tax. He was told a long time ago that there's no vendors on the beach. So what he does is everything is online. They contact him, he delivers it, and he comes and picks it up. It's not on the beach, it's online. And when this came up, he said, well, how come I didn't know if they were doing a beach rental bid, he would have bid on it and turned his thing in. But he doesn't have kayaks or paddle boards, and that's what the bid was for. So in all fairness, I think if we approve the Banana River Park right now, and we go back and put a bid out for the rentals, because I think it's a necessary thing in our city, because we have a lot of people that are here for the day off a cruise ship, and they want to go to the beach, and that's how he gets his customers. He's online, he's East Coast rental, he pays business, he has a business license here, and he pays the tax here. So I just want to be straightforward with that. But I think he would need a chance to bid on the rental part of it. And A1A will also be able to do that as well. But I think because the bid went out for kayaks and, paddleboards, he wasn't aware to bid on it. So we're adding Washington Avenue and the rentals without really putting it out for other people to bid on it. So
I think that's valid, that we should have it for activities on the riverside versus in another franchise for the beach, because of the fact that it's, really kind of two different scenarios.
Yeah.
For tours on the beach?
Well, for rentals,
Right.
equipment rentals if you wanted to.
I think tours, A1A, wherever we want tours, they have demonstrated themselves to be a good company who.
And I agree on that.
So I do pause on the beachside rentals. I think it's a need.
I think
all
it's a
the other
need,
things
too.
are needs too.
And I think A1A does a great job with their tours and the kayaks and the paddle boards and the bio lessons and, but like you're talking about, he's a small businessman who makes a little bit of extra money. He pays taxes here, sends his kids to school here. And I think that if there's another company out there that is doing the same thing, that they should have a chance to bid on it too. So I would support Banana River right now and then keep the other one. If he meets all the criteria, the insurance, all that stuff, then he should have a right to bid as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Willis.
according to this item before us, the vendor is only providing delivery of kayak, paddleboard, and surfboard rentals. There's no setting up on the beach. They're delivering to the beach. And that is no different than Banana River Park at this point. So he's just saying through this franchise fee that Washington is the only place he's going to go deliver. But to Mayor Pro Tem Kellums, her nephew, if he's getting something online, he could go to any place he wants and deliver. He's paying a BTR.
Yeah.
But, I think A1A has responded to this for kayaks, paddleboards, and surfboards. If Mayor Pro Tem Kellen's nephew was renting kayaks and paddleboards, he would have bid on this as well.
Right.
So we're not comparing apples to apples here, in my opinion.
This bid required, though, that they possess, the way I read it, the tours and the deliveries of those products. So if you didn't offer a tour, that was
Ecotourism was part of the.
right. But if you just sold, bunch of surfboards or one of the
Yeah.
surf shops. I'm sorry, Councilmember
No, I was going
Willis.
to say, I think we should go with both, because we're going to start your experience in doing this, you know what you're doing and everything else. If you want other places to do it on different sites or whatever, then they can apply for them. And then the city can decide if we're going to have everybody else. But I think we need to start with him.
And I can easily issue another RFP. We will probably need to take a look at the code though, because it seems very specific to kayaks, surf lessons, paddle boards, that thing.
And if you look at the business plan,
City attorney, speak.
oh,
Let
I'm
me just-
sorry.
No, that's okay.
The business plan does show surf lessons, sup lessons, and that kind of thing. So there are some, maybe not tours, but there are some service offerings that include those lessons. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, city attorney.
No, you weren't interrupting. I was just trying to look for an opportunity to say something which I think needs to be said at this point, because we've, I think, meandered beyond the scope of this agenda item. And I want to emphasize why this agreement is being presented to you by Parks and Rec. If you look at the city code, the way it's structured, under 54-4, the city has had a long-standing commercial solicitation ordinance. And under that ordinance, generally, no person can solicit canvas or merchandise for sale or the rental of merchandise on any sand beach area within the city, and including, beach fronts. Can't do commercial solicitation on public parking lots and facilities for beach or park access, including the dune crossovers, or cannot solicit on any publicly owned parks. So the code prohibits commercial solicitation in those areas. However, the council, in its wisdom, back in, I think, 2010, it looks like, 15 years ago, said, well, let's open up the possibility for some commercial use of the beaches and parks. And the council adopted a franchise program. And under the franchise program, only certain items are eligible to be solicited on city beaches and parks. Those items are food and non-alcoholic beverage, the group surfing, paddleboard, and kayaking. So Molly put together an RFP to solicit one of the authorized commercial uses that the council previously determined can occur in those areas. And that's what you received. You received 2 proposals for kayak and paddle boarding for those areas. Those proposals were evaluated, and now Molly is submitting a draft franchise agreement for those specific services. Regardless of what you approve tonight, any other commercial solicitation on the beaches and the parks and then on the parking access areas is prohibited, period, under the city code as it's currently written. So if you want to entertain expanding those types of commercial services beyond those items and in the form of a franchise, additional code revisions would have to occur to expand, right? The exception to the prohibition. There's a blanket prohibition. So I think that needed just to be said. Whether or not you want to authorize paddle boards and kayaks at the beach at this point is certainly within your prerogative to remove that from the proposed agreement and just keep it limited to the Manatee Park. That's fine. And I also want to just, one other point is that the council, in its wisdom back then, limited franchises for those specific authorized solicitations to no more than 2 franchises at a time. If I recall back then, the council was very concerned because, one, it didn't want the Wild West out there doing commercial solicitations on the beaches, and they wanted to keep a limit. If they authorized it, an exception to the prohibition, they wanted to limit the number of franchises so it doesn't become a wild, Wild West where people are just, selling all kinds of merchandise on the beach and the parks. So that's a little bit of the legislative history and the codes that you're operating under.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the code that you referenced, does it, if you said it, I'm sorry, tours, did it specify tours in our code?
It talks about group surfing lessons and kayaking. I don't think it specifically mentions tours, but the solicitation for those types of recreational amenities is authorized.
Attachment 1, Brett. Attachment 1
What's attachment 1?
I think it's talking about the commercial recreational franchises.
Yeah, that's one of the code sections. There's a couple of other related ones that are not in your package. If you want to get the full context of the city code, there's a couple of other sections right above it. So you would look at 54-4, 54-5, 54-6 of the city code. Are the most applicable code provisions regarding commercial solicitations on beach areas and parks.
So that makes sense. Thank you for the legislative history and the action that Molly and the team took to put it out to bid. Makes sense. It was the tours, which I think are awesome, is what sort of locked this in, right? And so once we go beyond that, I'm fine with Banana River Park. I am just a little concerned about the beach side, and I don't want A1A to, if we do want tours, I don't want them to have to go back out to bid again. I say that on the record. I think they've earned that, in my opinion, from following this bid. They met it. They were recommended by its staff. They've been deemed excellent. So if we limit it to just that, it's when we get into the delivery of those things over on that location. And any concerns on the other one is where I think the concern would be. If we want to move forward with it, I'm fine with it. I would think, I love the idea of going back to the code, looking at it, potentially Business and Economic Development Board can think about, small local things. But that's it. I'm ready to at least acknowledge that we got a company that provides tours, they do rentals, deliveries. They're now expanding over to the beach side. If we do go forward with this, I hope that we do maybe run a smaller bid that would not upfront interfere with what they've earned or felt like they've responded well to, so.
I could agree with that, but I think at a minimum, we can use the Washington Avenue crossover delivery as a test case, because in the contract, we can shut it down if we need to, or if we feel like it isn't working out to our satisfaction. So I think going forward with what Molly's department has proposed, with the prohibitions that are listed in Exhibit A, the scope of services, I think we should move forward with that.
Thank you, Councilmember Willis.
I just have one
Mayor
more
Pro Tem
question,
Cullum?
just so I can understand this. In the proposal from A1A, it says, for Banana River and Washington Avenue beach access, these may include paddle sports, rentals, tours, e-bike tours, fishing gear, guided. So this is a lot more than just paddle boards and kayaks. It says beach gear, surf equipment, rentals, and lessons. And this is the March 1st proposal from A1A.
I see.
And then in the back, on Exhibit A, vendors shall be prohibited from engaging in any of the following activities: storing equipment on site, that would be Washington Avenue, providing surf lessons, providing chair, umbrellas, canopies. So he's proposing to do those things, and then on Exhibit A, the scope of service, we're prohibiting them. So I'm just a little confused on,
Yeah, the proposal goes beyond what the code would actually authorize, and
That was my whole
and
concern.
The agreement that the council's considering does not authorize,
Exactly. It was the minimum services, but then I saw it and I liked a lot of it.
yeah.
So,
And-
I mean,
and
if
we're-
you liked a lot of it that's beyond the scope of the code, then you're looking at taking that under consideration at a later date to the code.
Okay.
Right? Because council, when they adopted this franchise regulation, they limited what they wanted to see. Other types of,
So the safe would be if we went with, well, I guess what are we suggesting? That
No, I'm
stick
just,
to
what
the-
I'm suggesting is you have to stick to you have to stick to the existing code and stick to the agreement, not what's in the proposal. Because the proposal's beyond what the code would authorize. What I'm saying is, what they propose beyond the code is more like food for thought on whether you know, in the future you wanted to consider amending, the city code to allow other types of commercial vendors. That's all.
Well, I think that, like we were discussing, the beach rental thing with the chairs and all that is a needed service. I would like to bring it to the business or the economic development thing like we discussed. But I think it would have to be a separate,
Yeah, it's a separate
Yeah.
city code type issue,
yeah.
and then you would have to, the council would have to, one, change the code and then do another RFP.
And if you would like to maximize the input from residents, you can also include our board.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think that probably the first stop, maybe.
Boards could banter around whether or not additional commercial lending should
Well,
occur.
right. Well, I would support A1A for what is in the code, the kayaks, and not the other stuff until we figure out if that's what we want and if we have a code for that and we have other companies bidding on it. So that's where I am.
So the agreement
As written,
is,
it's consistent with the code, you know, Molly, you know, the
Yep.
And it's limited to kayak, paddleboard.
And we heard about the proposal and new opportunities and the desire and the statements we heard. I think we're saying, let's take that next step to do the additional services as opposed to your recommendation of adding them in tonight. Well, I don't know if we could have, but I'm good.
I am too.
And I thank you. Is there anything else here? Councilmember Jackson? I know you stepped out for a minute, but we
Yeah,
sort of
excuse
ended
me,
up.
something hit me with my allergies, and I've been
You
trying
okay?
to get, well, so far, we'll see. If I start, having a cow over here again, you'll know that, no, I'm not. But so far, so good.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, we just concluded that the proposal of services and even desire, it exceeds in the inventory what was awarded, and if we stick to that, that's really limited to the surf school or the trainings, the eco tours and delivery of those products to both locations. And I think we're okay with that. We can cancel it anytime, as Councilmember Willis brought that up. We can consider other vendors, but we want to be respectful of A1A and what they've done and make sure we go in with eyes wide open. But if we wanted to add those other services, we would need to go back to the code and make those changes.
And what about having a kiosk at Washington? We're not going to approve that, right?
That's not part of the scope of services.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Correct. Molly?
Is there anything else? I think we're good to move forward with it as written. Have we got some clarification there?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the contract as written.
I'd second it.
Got a motion by Councilmember Willis, a second by Councilmember Davis. Any further discussion and any public comment that I missed on this one? Thank you for your patience. I think we're good. City Clerk?
Councilmember Davis.
4.
Councilmember Jackson.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Callum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
And Councilmember Willis.
4.
Passes 5-0. Thank you for your patience working through that with us, and thank you for your willingness to provide those services for our community. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you. I have one follow-up question.
Please.
I've been trying to leave poor Tamsin alone for a little bit so she can get her feet underneath her, but this is something that I've been wanting to address ever since 2022. Do we need a consensus from this board or a motion for me to take the next step actions and work with her to present to not only the Business and Economic Development Board, but also the Culture and Leisure Services Board? Can that just be?
If that's the best next step, and I think the council is willing to consider.
So you're talking about changing code
Right.
and then a follow-on if code is changed for additional service offering, RFPs, RFQs, whatever.
Right, because then you'll have recommendations not only from residents, but also the business community as well. It will require maybe a couple months of research because we need to look at what everyone else is doing and how they're doing it in order to present you guys with something so you can make an informed decision.
I'm excited about it, yes, and I think being able to Cape Canaveral's in a unique position to be able to do these things, and so my answer is yes. I think that unless any council opposes.
I have no opposition. I just like the model of having things delivered rather than
Oh, yeah.
kiosk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's take a break. It's 8:15. We'll get back to the public. Yes, that right. So we'll go into both of our public hearings, and thank you all for your patience with that. It's 8:17. Let's try to get back no later than 10 minutes. If we're back sooner, we can start earlier. That's 8:17. All righty, it is 8:27 PM. I call the meeting back to order. We just took a recess right before public hearings. The first public hearing that we have here in front of us, item 8D, is the first reading and public hearing ordinance 2025-02 titled Animal Control. And this is a motion to consider the approval of ordinance 2025-02, the substance of which as follows. If our city attorney is ready,
All set.
please.
Okay, first reading of ordinance number 02-2025, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Florida, amending Chapter 14, Animals, Article 1 in general, and Article 2, County Animal Control Ordinance of the City Code related to fines and penalties for animal control code violations, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code, severability, and an effective date. This ordinance is brought to you based on your request. The council asked to readdress the penalty section under Chapter 14, Animals. The city has adopted the county animal control ordinance by reference. That has been in the code for many, many years. There was one situation that we discussed about the fine regarding animals found in a park or on a beach. The city code had its own fine of $35 for that particular violation. When that came up for discussion by the city council, the council thought that was too low, and the decision, the direction that was given by council during that discussion was to, why should, perhaps the city should just adopt by reference the entire penalty schedule of the county code, animal control code, and that's what this ordinance does. It's pretty straightforward. In that if this ordinance passes, when it comes to specific fines for any violations of the animal control ordinance, the county's penalty schedule will prevail. So, that's what this ordinance mostly does here. So the schedule of fines that the county has currently adopted is attachment 2 to your agenda, so you can see the entire schedule. And you can see that the fine for, animal on a park or beach would go up if this ordinance passes from the $35 that's currently in place under the city code. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, City Attorney. Council, this is a public hearing item. I do got a card, and if anyone else chooses to speak can. Before going to the public and hearing, do we have any questions for city staff that would be beneficial before going to public?
Well, I don't know that it's so much of a question, but maybe a clarification. I understood when we had the animal control officer from Brevard County Sheriff's Department here describing penalties that they could stack. Is that correct? To anyone else's memory? That they would just, it would be more than, it could possibly be more than just one thing. If they
Yes.
couldn't produce a vaccination certificate or didn't have a license tag, or if it was off leash or whatever, all of those penalties would just stack continually. Okay.
That's what I remember.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I mean, this ordinance doesn't prohibit that at all.
Okay.
This ordinance just makes clear that any violation of the county animal control ordinance is going to go pursuant to the schedule, and the schedule's attached to this agenda item. Like, for failure to properly secure an animal, if you called, we had some discussion about under the county's penalty matrix, there's like a $55 fine for the first instance, $165 for the second, $265 for the third, $415 for the fourth. So not only would you have a stacking of potential penalties depending on what the violations are, but under the county code for that item, repeat offenses have higher dollar amounts for fines. And that is different than, the specific fine that's in the current code of $35, which is being proposed to be repealed for that type of violation.
Mhm.
Okay, so we had a $35. It's now going to 55 on first offense, and then 65 for second, 65 for third, 65 for fourth. Do you know why that the county didn't choose to escalate that fine on multiple offenses?
Why, the city?
I think the county table, I'm using the one with beach, which is right there, 1460, animal on public park or beach. This is page 2 of 2 of attachment 2.
Right. Yeah, that one escalates 55 to 65, and then it's 65 for the third and fourth offense as well. I don't know why it's that way, but if you have an animal on a public park or beach that is unsecured, right, like an animal at large, the stacking that Councilman Willis is talking about, that's an additional violation under 14-56. And that's 55, first offense, 165, 265, 415, up to, for the fourth offense.
But I guess, is there anything that would prohibit the county, or was there any intent or reason why on this second, third, and fourth, like, that's not the only one. The one right above it, 1459, animal defecating, urinating, it's 50, and then it flat stays at 65 for the second, third, and fourth. To me, I mean, you would increase by $10. I don't want to complicate this at a minimum, but it's like, maybe there was a reason, or you could not escalate the fine on those specific violations.
I know that we do not allow animals on the beach. But this particular instance might be an animal that is on a leash. The people just don't know or whatever, but, I'm curious as to why it didn't get escalated as well, but, not that, excuse it, but, if it were running loose, not on a leash, that to me would be a reason to really escalate it. More than just stacking it, so to speak. Not securing your animal.
1455, failure to properly secure the animal, that's the leash.
Yeah.
55, 160, yep, as the city attorney said.
To me, that first offense should have been higher, but again, this is our first shot at this.
So if we want to change one item from the county, that would be?
Well, that would, we would have.
Couldn't word it the way we worded
Well,
it.
I mean, the city decided, for whatever reason, and I can't remember when or how long it's been in the code, but for dogs found on a park or on a beach, the city has just a citation of $35 fine, right? So, if the council wanted to have its own fine for that violation, then rather than striking out that language and relying on the county schedule, we would have to write in some code language for a higher fine than what's in the county's schedule. So that's an option, of course, for the council, but the sheriff also, I think, can't remember who was here, said that from a citation standpoint, it would be simple, more or easier for the sheriff to have one fine schedule. So that's another aspect of this, is like we're proposing to strike that fine for that type of violation and just referring to the county schedule for that.
And
Just
I
for
understand that.
consistency. So, that's another issue to consider, but
And
It's whatever-
probably,
it's whatever the council wants to do on that.
probably when this was written too, it was considered that, well, we have a county park that has a beach right next to a city beach. So the city beach and the county beach are right next to each other. We have a county park and a city park. In other words, it's the same thing because it's the same beach. You know what I'm saying? It's the same park. It's just maybe that part's down there in a sense. So you could see where they didn't differentiate between the city and the county because like right here, if you look over here, everything's right there. So that's why I could see the city just taking the county's thing. Now, as far as adjusting for the city, like Anthony said, moving these things up, well then, yeah. We would enforce it at a greater maximum than the county. Can't we just hand select those and say, for these things, the city goes by this schedule for these particular offenses?
It sounds like we could, but I also understand the consistency of one thing. I think that, what Councilmember Willis brought up about the first offense with the unsecured failure to properly secure animal. State law, I think, changed, or I don't recall exactly, but being able to, gosh, I drew a blank on the word. Can you specify the weight of the dog or the breed? I think something came out that prohibited our ability to
To regulate, there's,
Species
to
or-
distinguish and discriminate against the breed of a dog.
Okay.
Is, the last time I looked at that, and it's been a while, is a prohibition
Because the
for local governments to do that,
based on breed.
based on breed.
Is there anything that would prohibit us from basing it on weight or size? I guess. I know you can't weigh an animal, but some
No,
sort
no,
of
weigh
some
station.
approximate.
I haven't really looked
large-
at that, but, that in and of itself could also be breed specific, right? I mean, if you're gonna say, if the dog weighs, more than 100 pounds, then that means by implication, it's not going to be a lot of breeds where the breed doesn't get that, right? That gets that heavy, right? Certainly not going to be a Chihuahua because you're not going to have a Chihuahua at 100 pounds or a Frenchie, so someone could make the argument that, while you're not breed specific, you are kind of indirectly being breed specific by categorizing it by weight.
I'm interested in options
I
that
can
we
look at
have
that,
there
yeah.
because looking at a 3-pound dog off a leash is very different than an 80, 100-pound dog off of a leash.
No, I
Talking
don't
about breed,
disagree.
just size.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that.
Especially to different types of residents. Somebody who's elderly with mobility issues, and it compared to the most physically fit, right? There's that's. We're going to have 2 readings at this. My hope was to just understand the county's approach before just adopting. I agree on the first offense. And if we could look into that, I think, and clarify, is there a way for us to differentiate between the animals largely based on, you have dangerous dogs. And the last, I guess, question I have before any council members or public is that the Pam Rock Act, I believe, passed. Pam Rock was a postal service worker who was killed tragically by some, I think, a pack of dogs. And state law, I believe, it is passed. I think the governor signed it. Miss Mary was, I think, sharing it. The governor did sign it. So that goes into effect on July 1st. And so before the next reading, I think, and certainly before we adopt this, that increases a local government's ability to go above $500. I think today we're capped at $500. I think it doubled it and took it to $1,000. And so if we adopt this, kind of a couple questions, and the county moves and increases their fines without our consent, first of all, would ours automatically increase if the county increases theirs?
Yes.
So if this Pamrock comes out, or it's allowed now to go from, I think the highest one on here is $500, July 1st, we can go to $1,000. And they also had some other benefits in there that you did not have to prove that you had knowledge that it was a dangerous dog if it was. And I really need to understand those laws a little bit more, but they are tools for us to, I think, address some of the big concerns here today, and that would be it, is if we could go to 1,000, would we? And are we gonna be dependent on the county to do that? If we wanna do it and the county moves forward with it, sounds like we're in all,
Yeah, I haven't studied the Pamrock Act, but I think it's related to dangerous dogs, but the dangerous dog designation is handled by the county.
okay,
Okay, not the city. Cities don't handle that. The county does.
okay.
So that's factor number one. So if the Pamrock, I gotta look at the Pamrock Act carefully, but if the $1,000 fine is related to the designation of a dog as a dangerous dog, right, it's gonna be dependent on the county determination of dangerous dog, right?
So I think in there was something about the dangerous dogs have to wear a uniform now or a suit. I think that might be new or something. And if that's true, or there is some sort of collar or something, and a resident sees, say it's an orange collar, I don't know, I'm just using something for illustrative purposes, and I really don't know. But you see that dog off of a leash, right? Those dogs have been differentiated not by weight or species, by meeting the criteria of dangerous. Registration process, and have to carry minimum insurance. If that dog's off a leash, I think we would definitely want to treat that as not a non-emergency call. That's an emergency call before, in my opinion, and maybe that's largely administrative, but on the backside, what happens, we can stack. Now, if we learn that there's some more tools because of this, maybe there's not, that's it. I think a lot of thought on this and spent some time, and I know it's been in front of us for a while, but I really want to make sure I understand how the county's decisions to change their fines impact us, and whether this council wants to go beyond really what the county does. I think that's the first thing we're going to need to, and that's largely what we're voting on. Do we want to adopt it as written, or carve out some areas or across the board? So we can go to the public if we're ready. Let's do it. The public, do you want to, I think you wanted to stay there and try to speak, and I can relay into the microphone? That would be great. Can all hear me? Yes. She has requested to stay there, and I honored that. Thank you. Mm-hmm. At our park, yes. You tried calling that, what day was, or roughly was this that was today? Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Several dogs running around on a beach or on a park that says no dogs allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And it also happened yesterday at Madison Street. 2 large dogs, and they're waiting right there to get on the beach,
Mm-hmm.
blocking the boardwalk to get on the beach. I mean, say, well, whatever, what are they gonna do? Don't take it serious. Approached by a dog out of nowhere that is aggressive. Idea. It's like madman watching. Madman just comes in here and you can't pass. But a madman, he would have a gun on. Oh, you just don't expect it. Imagine it's your child on the beach. I went to the doctor. I went under. I was talking to the doctor about this episode. I was bit and. And just before I went under, oh, I was at the beach this week. Very large dog. The dog was super friendly, so I didn't think to call anyone or anything. And he's got 3 small children. Small, one is about a year old. Oh, by the end of the day, the dog was sitting in my lap. So we spent hours there with this large dog, and but that dog just all of a sudden turned on him or his family. What would he have done?
Mm-hmm.
People just smart. Don't even realize how dangerous. Very smart person. Wondering also, work with the county. Try to enact it because county. So can you work with them?
Mm-hmm.
For the safety of all the citizens of Brevard County. And be on board. Are the things that I've been told are just atrocious. That, oh, even if the dog killed you, Miss Cabana, there's nothing we could do. We couldn't. Like, are you kidding me? And she even said, what do you want me to do? No, I want you to uphold the law. These are what the laws say, and they don't know even what the boards about dog laws. Overwhelming to me at times. Like, I couldn't think.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you all for sharing that. And this is a public hearing, and just to recap what you talked about was some of your recent experiences down at, it was Banana River Park at the beginning of your conversation where you had saw the posting, or was that Manatee Sanctuary Park? Manatee Sanctuary Park, you witnessed dogs. There was a number to call that posted no dogs. We familiar with that. You called it and you got no answer. Yesterday, you also had an experience at Madison Avenue where you saw dogs on the crossovers, not on the like beach yet, but the narrow area where everything bottlenecks to access the beach.
I have pictures
Mm-hmm.
that say, no dogs allowed, and they press that, and we can't get one way or the other without one that big giant dog.
I understand that, yes. And then just obviously from your experience back in November 2024, you're trying to advocate for change and to help. And I think what we're doing as far as your question on the county, you'd ask, do we work with the county? Yes, I think this is as close as you can. We're literally mirroring it. But can we work to increase the fines? Yes, we can. The public can, the community can. And I think that is something we got one more reading that we should do and see at least where they are. I want to make sure that you got a chance to say everything at this point, and if there's anyone else who wants to speak at the public. And just for the record, Mary Scabona, and you're a resident here in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Brevard. Okay. Thank you very much. So it's Mary, Kim, and Richard. Thank you for your service and thank you for your public comment. I think that one of the things we're going to talk about is education and awareness. Posting signs is one thing, but last time we had our animal, the gentleman's name who spoke from the sheriff's office, I believe he was one who responded to the call back in November.
He was the animal control officer that investigated it. Yeah.
Doing an educational public outreach, and I think the sheriff has come to Cape Canaveral. I know he's been to support all of our events. He's come to the Coffee with the Cop, and I think that something around animal would be really good, and we can certainly reach out and see if that's something that we can do, especially once we get the program or this going to communicate to the community. To give the residents confidence that we're moving in this direction and this is enforcing, and what residents can do. How can they play a part? Because our deputies can't be everywhere. They depend on us to call. Sorry that your call resulted in that. It's a non-emergency notification, but that's something else I think that we might want to consider is going directly to, especially under circumstances, a direct line. Is there any other public comment? I will need to formally close it. Thank you. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the council. Council? I think we've gotten a few questions clarified. The code today is to adopt the Section 1479 of Brevard County. Thoughts? Councilmember Jackson?
As we look at adopting this, which I'm in agreement that, we need to have fines and we need to be able to stack these things. I'm not in disagreement with this, but I also think that we need to be realistic. Because I'm going to tell you what I'm experiencing in the condo world, and that is people renting from out of the area. Recently, I know of someone that came in and stayed for 2 weeks in a non-pet-friendly condominium with a Rottweiler and some kind of other dog that was equally as big. When the property manager was made aware, they did not remove the pets because the property manager wants to make the money. Each condo complex has to enforce their rules. And we're getting a lot of dogs from out of the area right now. So as we look at all of these things, we have to be realistic in the fact that there's going to be a large number of people in a tourist town, And we've turned into a tourist town with the number of Airbnbs and Vrbo's and rentals that we have. There's going to be a large number that are not going to know what our laws are and that are not going to follow them, because these guests were informed you need to remove the dogs. They didn't leave. They stayed the rest of their time in a condo complex that's not pet friendly. They were on a leash, and this is private property, and we don't have the right as the city to enforce for private property. And as long as they're using the leash law, they were obeying our laws. But I'm not against what y'all are saying, but I want us to all look at it realistically, because we're dealing with this in the condominium world with multiple complexes saying, how do we get them to stop doing this when they're not supposed to be there? And the thing is, how do you do that? And especially on rentals. Well, the property manager.
We need to keep the conversation up. Okay. Thank you. And Miss Mary, I will, if you've got some, I can open it back up, but it's really important that we keep the public meeting here. We closed the public hearing, but I want to make sure you're heard. Is we're going through, no, you're okay. If there's things that you want to note, just wave at the end or remind me, and I'll make sure you get a chance. So, thank you. Councilmember Jackson?
Well, my thing is I'm just wanting us to be aware as we're looking at this, and whatever direction we take going forward with it, because I'll tell you, I enforce my rules, and I put it in the contract, and it says, you do this, you bring a pet, you will be removed with no refund. And that's that. And believe me, I removed a few people for more than just that. But people that's their rentals are their life and their blood and their income and all that, a lot of them don't. So my point is, being in a tourist area, we can't enforce that totally. I don't see how that can happen, because the enforcement within rentals falls back to condo associations. If they're following the rules as far as a leash, then they're following the law. So how do we get the information out to people traveling to the area is where I'm going with this. Because people that are coming to visit our area, if we're going to put in things in place, we should have some kind of outreach, whether it's on the sign or on our website, and how do we want to get this out to travelers so they know what to expect when they're in our city with those, whatever for restrictions we put in.
We added something when we adopted the short-term rental
We
policy.
talked about placing literature in each short-term rental, requiring it to be displayed. And I think the comment was made that it was displayed on the back of the door of a rental. Do they see it? Who knows? But we could easily send literature out to hotels, any rentals, anything in the city, and put it out there. We posted on the board out here about leash laws. I have a procedural question for Anthony. If we were to adopt this ordinance on the first reading and were to subsequently find out from the county that, yes, they're looking at taking these fines up or doing whatever, or we can get some commitment, would we have to redo all of it and start over? Or could we make an adjustment at the next meeting?
If the county were, if the question is if the county were to consider changing the fines, then, and the council adopted this fee schedule in total, because this council's already approved some of the fee schedule, then the amendment automatically takes effect in the city boundaries. So, you know, whatever the county decides on the fee schedule will be the fee or the penalty in Cape Canaveral.
But if they were not to do what we are probably leaning towards, would we have to start over if we wanted to make changes at second reading?
Oh.
I think he's talking about in between first and
Yes.
second
Yeah.
reading, as opposed to approving it and
Yep, hold on, I got a couple of screens open because I was checking that breed-specific language. No, if the city were to take a different position in second reading and actually want to create its own penalty for the violation about animals in parks, for example, then the city council could do that at second reading.
Okay, all right.
Because the title of the ordinance is very, it's very general,
Mhm.
and it's pertaining to amending Chapter 14, related to fines and penalties for animal control code violations. So we can make adjustments to whatever those fines are at second reading, and the title is fine. It gives ample notice to the public that council's considering modifying the fines and penalties under Chapter 14. Does that answer your
Yes,
question?
yes, thank you.
Thank you. No matter what we adopt, I do think it would be prudent to have those, if not already, this table, because I think if we open our code, this table won't be in our code. It's going to point to Section 1479. And so someone would have to go to the county code at that point.
Right.
But having it posted up front on the website or the most appropriate, maybe a couple of places, certainly adding that into the short-term rental packet, as, you know, there's 30 different types of violations as opposed to, one sentence with, I think that's an easy win as well.
Why can we not insert this table in our code? Display it in our code on the website?
I think the benefit of not putting, I'd like to, the benefit of not is when the county changes,
Right. That's correct. There could be inconsistencies. I mean, we could put it into the code. I mean, it's in Muni code, right? So all you have to do is just you read the city's code and says, well, the county code's going to apply. You just go right to the county code on Muni code, and there's the most up-to-date schedule.
Mhm.
Now, if you wanted to incorporate it directly into the city code, I mean, I guess we could do that.
Well, will our city code have a link to the Muni code?
Well, that's what I was thinking too. Is it possible to link?
Just a
I mean, that's a question we can bring to Muni
a
code,
hyperlink to the Muni code,
and that would make
Yeah.
sense.
or publish it with, an asterisk or a note that says that, subject to this date, if any changes that I guess the county would supersede, how you'd say it much better than me, but, or would govern. I think pulling it forward wherever, if it's on the website, certainly in the code, because that would really help, especially for public education, if we're going to start talking about this, or send somebody, inform them to go to the city's code. They can see it right there without linking or not. And as long as we're staying on top of it, or the county's notifying us, I guess we could follow their lead. Okay. Anything else on that one? Councilmember Davis? Mayor Pro Tem Kellum?
I'm good.
I think the dogs, let me back up and say this, is that I believe people should have the liberty and the freedom in the city, I hope, to enjoy their dogs on leashes in the community. And I think the majority of them do, if you were to look community. However, it is common to see dogs on the beach and in our parks, and some of them, I mean, at one point, they were not allowed anywhere. We, by resolution, opened up some parks. We've also created a dog park where you can go off leash in the closed and fenced area. We didn't have those outlets. And so today, when we see a dog off leash, you know, I'm thinking that's what our dog park is for. When you see a dog just, you know, on the beach, for example, we've got parks where you can bring your dogs. And the incident that we've heard with Mary, the way my head worked was if we were to go back through that experience again, as far as from a city response standpoint, what could we do to get in front of that? And the thing that a person walks onto the beach, a dog pursues them, attacks them, they call emergency, they come out, it's obviously not in enough time. They did stack some fines, I think, quarantine, took action, but that freedom and liberty, right, it went too far, and it was at the expense and detriment of Mary and her family. And so can we've went down this and we started putting some signs out. We talked about putting things in the water bills, and people started vandalizing the No Dog on Beach sign, the big one that was on Harrison Avenue, and I think we moved it around. But can we differentiate? Like, that's where I was going earlier, is when I walk out and I see a dog on the beach, period, right, that's a violation. You should call. I'm going to be honest. I've seen dogs on the beach. I don't call every time, right? I'm spending time with my family. Whatever. There's times I have called. However, if I see a dog now on the beach that's large and capable of being dangerous, and they are off a leash, how can we make that as easy as possible for someone? And the thing is, we don't, I think, want them calling the non-emergency line. I would view a large dog off of a leash running around freely, and the owner is no longer able to physically control them. That's the only thing we could have done in that day, right? Is to see there's a dog off of a leash, they're big and capable, and we're calling an emergency. And the deputy who's writing maybe a police report about a bike that was stolen, that's really important. But I would want to, I don't know what level or how this is administered, know that they would abandon that and go immediately to that dog and treat it like an emergency because of what's possible and what's capable. And then, so that would be the request. I don't know how we get there. It might be strictly administration, or Brevard County Sheriff's Office might have some ideas, but how can we equip the public to learn when you see that it's too risky, that person needs to understand. Those are some initial thoughts that I think potentially could have helped.
We just have to change the thinking of the person. You know, a dog could attack a person. The dog could be, the owner's fine, the dog's put down. But I I feel just with my own experience is that, and I hate to say this, but, and I live down the road here, but I'll say 50% of the time, it is amazing that dog owners do not have their dogs on a leash, or even if they do, they allow their dogs to wander over as you're walking up the beach or whatever. And it's like she was saying, Mary, it's like this attitude of, oh, don't worry, she's nice, she won't hurt you. Well, you know, and then there's the other part where it's a way of thinking. They're letting their dogs run free. Every so often a dog will come in your direction. Happened to me last year. I'll just say this, personal experience. These people are walking with their head down, their dog's running alongside them, and that dog sees me and my wife, and it made a beeline, and I stepped in front of Debbie, and I put my hand out, and that dog came right up and jumped right on top of me. And I pushed the dog off, and then the owner was like, oh, sorry, you know, but they didn't even have the dog on a leash. And I see it. It's an owner problem. It's a way of thinking. Mm-hmm. It is a terrible way of thinking, because you could walk up and down the beach, and there are so many people where I live, they are letting their dogs off the leash, running around. And so you're walking up, and I'm thinking, like, I'm standing next to my wife all the time thinking, is that dog going to come this way? That's a big dog. You can't predict that. And then the ones, there's a certain amount on a leash, but I could tell you, I hate to say it, but what I see, and I'm down in Cocoa Beach, 50% of the dogs, people are letting them walk alongside them because, oh, they won't bother you and they're trained or whatever. You just never know. So it's tough. I think you got to educate the owners. I almost think it's just like anything. If you want to change people's attitudes, somebody's dog attacks somebody, the owner has to pay the price. Maybe it means, I don't know, a big penalty, but if they really hurt the person, maybe it means 10 days in jail. I don't know, but something's got to get these people's attention, because 50%, I will tell you that 50% of the encounters I see, these people they are not thinking about the other people who are walking up with no dogs or whatever. They have this false sense that their dogs are okay, or these people are okay with these dogs, and they let the dogs come right up on you. It's an owner problem. That's all I want to bring up. But it's out there, and I always got my eyes open on the beach. When I'm walking on the beach, always got my eyes open on the beach. Loose dog coming up on me and my wife, always watching, and then it kind of stays near the owner. Well, what if this time it doesn't stay near the owner? It is a problem. It's a problem. You know, that's all I want to say.
And I've thought about communities, just having the first responders. I guess that you got dogs on the beach, and then you've got a potentially capable, dangerous, large dog that could cause harm. Can we differentiate those, even if it's internal, and work with the public to educate them? If you see a dog off the leash, we treat that with no tolerance. And I think it's 100%, I agree with you, John, it's the owner's responsibility, because there are owners that do not need a leash, and they can verbally 100% control every move that dog makes. That dog won't move. I had a lab. I mean, but you let another dog come through, or you let a squirrel go by or something, the instincts of that animal comes out. And I've shared in the past, there was a pug that was on a leash at my neighbor's house. I was walking back, a big bulldog came running out, and he was the friendly dog to humans. But it's also, he went in and shook that pug around, and the poor pug couldn't escape because he was he was following law. But it was really sad because, it's just too risky to have dogs on leashes. And how do we make that like a glaring part of our culture and community, that you're right, we're going to have transient visitors coming in, and it's only going to increase, and people want to enjoy their dogs. But we have a reputation that in Cape Canaveral, you better not have your dog off the leash, or our deputies are coming and we treat it with the highest
And
level.
where I live, it's two words. It's an uncontrolled playground. You're walking up and the dogs are running near the owners and they're throwing the ball. That's fantastic. But these dogs, none of them are on leashes. And I don't know how enforcement is there, but I can tell you that when something happens to you, you're very tentative walking up the beach thinking, do I have to walk with, do I have to be looking around instead of just taking a nice, relaxing stroll on the beach with my wife? Because I have dog owners who refuse to put their dogs on leashes.
Or closing your eyes on a blanket, just relaxing, exhaling. So, yeah.
It's a problem.
And I think that's it. We're going to have 2 readings. It would be I don't think, it comes down to the administration and the enforcement and supporting our officers and whatever is needed. I think keeping it the same does simplify it for the deputies. But the one thing I had a note here was that clear published schedule of the fines, like we said, that specifies exactly what the violations are. And it would be good to know the steps taken before issuing a citation, just for the community, some sort of understanding. It would be my request that you can warn for one time for a dog on a leash that's, like the example we heard. Deputies come up, obviously they warn, but if the dog is off the leash, can we set a tone and intent that we're not warning for that? We're citing on first observance of first call, so when people know they call in, it's going to be responded to, and they can make their case and plea, I think, to the appropriate body. But that's it. I'm open to increase the fines, but I also I think we got a good council up here that has some good ideas on how to get the word out. As Councilmember Jackson said, I did see it up on the marquee, as you said, Councilmember Willis. We voted on some of these things in the past, and we put some resources behind it and really try to set the tone to equip the community. Lifeguards are also seasonal eyes and ears that we might want to consider thinking about improving response times where they can see that as a concern in those areas where they'll be set up from time to time. And then also our community service police. I know that they're not as active as they once were, but perhaps because our deputies are dealing with some of the heaviest items and
Well, the Citizen Patrol
yes,
patrols all the parks and streets, all of that, but they're never on the beach. But they would be a good resource. And, speaking about getting the word out, putting it in the water bill is ineffective because most condos don't ever see a water bill.
That's true.
So, it's got to be almost a direct mailer type thing.
well, I thought that Waste Pro did an excellent job they've obviously got real estate containers in front, but that was an example of just piggybacking on some of the outlets that we have. Thank you for raising that.
Well, one other thing we could do is all of the pet waste bag dispensers we have should have a sign on there that there is, a leash, Cape Canaveral is a leash law town, and a fine. This is what it's going to be. But you put them on every dispenser. That's where the dogs are. The ones that pick up after their dogs, so.
And the sign from it going to the beach is after you get up on the crossover. There were one point I thought we had 2, one right at the beginning, but are you allowed to be on the crossover the way our code's written with a dog?
The signs prior to to
Yeah.
the boardwalk itself, and it says no further than here. But the thing is that forever, people will walk to the other side to see the ocean
Yep.
and then walk back. And so, as I said earlier, and I'm sitting here just listening, taking all this in, because you can make a zillion laws, but we're talking about changing behavior here. This is a very dog-oriented city. After what I've seen, when we had our first meeting, people were saying, I don't care, I've just given an example of what travelers do. They come here and literally the condo association will be saying, remove the dogs. The rental manager won't remove them. And the guest is sure not leaving. And sometimes if you say it to them, they're not the kindest to you if you confront them. Also, just like you were talking about, or John, actually our interim city manager was talking about, people assume, my dog was one of the ones attacked and almost killed her, and she's a whopping 9 pounds. And literally, people walk up on that little dog with a big, huge dog and go, oh, they want to meet. And I'm like, no, my dog doesn't want to meet your dog. And so when I walk, I move way out of everyone's way because I know exactly what you're saying, where people think that those dogs, they're an extension of themselves, an extension of their family, and in some cases, and it is their family versus them really having a family. And so they give you the, oh, well, my dog would never do that, just like a lot of parents might take up for their kids, So how you legislate behavior, I don't know. I don't know how you legislate and modify behavior. I'm sitting and listening, and I certainly am understanding what is being said. How we do that to be successful is where we all have to really put our heads together, because you can put it out there, and if people don't want to do it, and Brevard County as a whole is a very dog-friendly county.
But if somebody's out, I'm talking about a dog off the leash.
Right, now that,
Let's use the exact 1455, what would be failure to properly secure an animal. And that is a little vague, I guess, but maybe it's better. Under those circumstances, I think if now, and a big change is they are going to get hit with a $55 fine. I think this was the one you said, maybe that one's higher. Was it the 55? And to me, that second offense goes to the 165. I think that will be effective, and I agree, it could go higher under the circumstances, especially as it asks with that owner, as John said, the pet owner is responsible. And so I think it would change that person's behavior if they got hit, that individual person. But I agree with you, culture change takes time, it's long.
well, I think, and this is not anything we can do in this room, to be honest, it would be a county thing, but if there's physical damage to a person, that pet owner should have jail time, some jail time involved. Because if you had jail time involved, you would not let your pet be out next time and not on a leash. Now, I don't have any control over that. My thoughts are that, but that's not something I can control as someone up here. But if you have a ramification to a negative situation, because a lot of people will just throw money at it and keep going.
That would change the mindset. It's on the news. Pet owner gets 5 days in jail because you brutally attacks, blah, blah, blah. And other people look at that and go, geez, you know what? I don't want to go to jail. Maybe that'll change a lot of people's attitudes.
I know with my dog's attack was with a dog from Canada that was here with their owner. And the Canadian owner said, well, dogs will be dogs, eh? And I said, well, not exactly in the U.S. Your dog is here as a visitor in our country, and the way the law was written, because I looked it up, literally could have quarantined that dog for 90 days and until they left, or until they left, whichever, you know. So there was a consequence for an out-of-the-country dog. What are we doing, though, with a dog that happens, that lives here? So
It is tough, but I think it's a step in the right direction. That leash, that no leash, and even if somebody's dog gets out and they live blocks away from the beach and they just find their way down to the beach, I mean, even in those circumstances, that's hard. That's much different than somebody going out to the beach, unleashing, letting their dog go. We know they walk by one sign, a few more signs, changing the color of the signs, getting it without cluttering. But life safety issues, I think, having some more signs and really emphasizing the leash. But it can get confusing because there's no dogs on the beach. And so when you get into no leash, well,
it's very difficult to legislate behavior. It is. And everyone has things that they value and what that value is to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the leash, just like you're saying, Mayor Morrison, I think the leash is the biggest thing, because you can't really contain a dog or constrain a dog without having control over them via leash. So
But we can legislate consequences.
that we can legislate.
yeah, I think that's where we have a role, and I'm confident that if we can work with Brevard County Sheriff's Office and say, hey, if you want that type of response, you need to do this. I mean, it might be as simple as 911, but is there a way, how can you treat it up there with, a high-risk call?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm willing to contact the sheriff and see what we can get them to help us with.
Animal Services.
Out of Melbourne.
Yeah, I think we need to potentially bring something forward for the community and see if we could. When that happens, I think it would happen. It would be good to talk with them before the next reading, and then see if we could, upon adopting, get the word out and help the slow track on that, but come clear that there's going to be no tolerance if this goes for dogs on leashes. But we'll play the slow game on all the other things, but that one I think is important, and then we can learn about the other tools they have and ways to work specifically as it relates to dogs. And the last is an outlet on the beach. Cocoa Beach has dogs on the beach. They have a park. We have a few more outlets that we didn't have at one time, and so I think letting people know about that. But I agree, people are going to show up with their dogs. There's people that said it's worth me paying the $35 fine to take my dog on the beach, and so that's where I think people get frustrated. But I love our animals. I love dogs, and but retracing the steps of that experience, November 2024 with Miss Mary, I think it's one of the big issues that I spoke with her on was the response resulted in some stacking fines and ultimately quarantine, but she rightfully just never expected that, as she said. And so she's changed my view as, because I know everyone's dog is nice and loves, but it's animal nature, especially with other pets or animals. They can and they're capable of doing that, and we can only exhale if you at least got them on a leash. So that response from the deputies, could it have changed anything? You know, I think the call was after the attack happened because it was seconds. There was no time. The only thing that I think could have happened was upon observing it. Now the culture changes. Now we know. Now we realize that's capable. That is what I'm willing to do. And if you want to reach out to the sheriff and let him know these are the things we're trying to do, obviously the council can decide at second reading. I don't think we change any of the amounts today. Because it will go back and forth, I think. I think we should come on that second reading with any changes for the fine amounts.
Well, something we could do in the interim is ask Commander Keck to allow the citizen patrol to take their vehicle out on the beach. And that's part of their patrol. Right now, they just take a vehicle through the city, but if they can get out and spend part of their time on the beach, it could be educational.
I think it would be great. So maybe we can explore those questions to see what resources we have. And my hope is that we're well ahead of the snowbirds, and then obviously next spring break can be a better place. Is there anything else on this matter? And I'll make sure that y'all have a chance to speak. You want to go ahead and, I see you waving. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Some of those are above our head, but as elected officials, all of us have the capability to advocate. I think we're going to try to get our arms around what we have direct control over. Was there anything else at this point? Yes, please, Richard. I know our communications team and Amy and them, they've used QR codes and leveraged them. This is largely a city administrative decision to promulgate the rules, and I think he can work with his team to see what options are available. thank you for that idea about the QR code. Yes, sir. Okay, and with that, I think the one thing, City Attorney, if between now and the next reading, if the council could have just a summary of the Pamrock from your view, if there's anything that we could, it's happening July 1st. How the second thing was how the counties, if they make changes, we just automatically change today, but it's dependent on that. If Pamrock increases to 1,000, we want to increase it, but the county does not. So I think understanding that process, and then any ideas, Mr. Interim City Manager, between now and then about how to communicate and leverage the resources we have. And then Councilmember Willis, I think you talked about reaching out to the sheriff. I just saw him at the mayor's breakfast. I think if we could have, him come maybe at the beginning of one of our meetings in it too, or maybe a dedicated workshop. Obviously, Commander Keck and the rest of the county sheriff's office, animal control or personnel. And I think that is a good start. I am leaning towards increasing the fines in some areas, but not more than just getting an understanding on the process of what is the citizen's role, what can we tell them exactly what to do, improve communication, and I love the community patrols. Anyone who's out on that beach can be eyes and ears and help our deputies know what's going on. So, anything else? If not, we can pass it on first reading, one of two readings. But yes, on first reading. If we're good.
I'll make a motion that we pass ordinance 022025 on the first reading.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Kellum and a second by Councilmember Willis to adopt the ordinance on first reading as written. Any further discussion? City Clerk? Well, that was not Siri.
Councilmember Davis.
4.
Councilmember Jackson.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Callum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
And Councilmember Willis.
4.
Right. The ordinance on first reading passes 5-0 unanimously, which takes us, we are at 9:42 p.m. We have one more public hearing item, and if the city attorney is ready, we can go right to it, which is 8E.
Yep.
03/2025.
Okay, so this is an ordinance of the first reading, City Council, City of Cape Canaveral, Florida, amending the definition of the term specimen tree in section 102-36 of the city code related to tree protection, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code severability, and an effective date. Also a public hearing item. And Abigail has been waiting patiently, and I think she probably wants to say something. So,
hello.
3 hours and 40 minutes later, here you go.
Just making sure. I'm Abby Holmes. I'm from the Resilience Division. I will give a very brief, quick little synopsis of what this ordinance is in front of you tonight. So we'll zoom out 30,000 feet real quick. So Article 2 in the Land Development Code is our tree protection language. And so zooming into section 102.36 is some of our definitions. And so you'll find specimen tree there defined. What we're looking to do, we are proposing an amendment to this code to just change two things about this. Currently, as it stands, the diameter at breast height measurement for specimen trees is at 24 inches. We are looking to reduce that to 18. In addition, we wanted to further define and clarify the term specimen tree by saying that it is desirable tree species. And that's listed within the Florida Native Plant Society's list. And so that's really all that we're changing about it. Something to consider, the reasoning for this. DBH is a standard measurement of tree size, but we all know that desirable tree species, they vary in size. So we want to make sure that we're getting that range to be applicable to all desirable tree species. And so that's why we're looking to reduce from 24 inches to 18 to widen that scope. But at the same time, we don't want that to apply to every single tree, even though we already say that undesirable is a species that would not count for specimen trees. We're further defining it by saying it's applicable to our desirable tree species. So that's like the brief overview of it, but I'm here to answer any questions if you have any for me.
Thank you, Abby. That was very helpful. Any questions, council?
I would just like to say thank you so much for doing this. We have lost a lot of beautiful trees in our city, and this is really exciting. So thank you so much for your work on this.
Thank you. I do have one question. As designated, I'm familiar with the Florida Native Plant Society, so it's a matter of going on there, and that's where those species will be listed.
Correct. Yeah, so they have a list of desirable species, and that's applicable to the East Central Florida region. It's digital and available online. It's really easy to navigate. They have a whole list of plant species. It's a great tool and resource.
It is. Thank you. If there's not anything else for Abby, we can go ahead and bring it back. This is this is public hearing, right? Yes, it is. I think we're good. Thank you, Abby. Council, any more questions before we go to the public? All right, this is a public hearing item. If anyone chooses to speak on it, please come forward and speak. Ordinance 03-2025. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing, bring it back to the council.
I make a motion that we pass ordinance 03-2025 on the first reading.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Kellum and a second by,
You can give them to him. Doesn't matter.
all right,
the same.
Councilmember Davis.
It's the
There.
same.
Any further discussion? Seeing none? City Clerk.
Councilmember Davis.
4.
Councilmember Jackson.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Callum.
4.
Mayor Morrison.
4.
And Councilmember Willis.
4.
Ordinance 03-2025 passes unanimously, and now we are, I misplaced my sheet. That brings us to,
Item number 9,
let's see, is it 9?
wastewater revenue. Yes.
The wastewater revenue sufficient, this is just so that closes our public hearing. This is just a discussion item. I think this was submitted by our interim city manager, or at least department directors. Wastewater revenue sufficiency analysis findings discussion. Mr. Interim City Manager.
Yes, Mayor, Council. This is something, since we had the 2022 Revtillis report and had the study done and where we should be every year in terms of what the increase should be. Every year, we look at this to see how much in line this is. Actually, I think it was being looked at based on, for instance, this year there's a 5% increase based on what the study says. Well, the 5% increase, to let the council know, is definitely warranted, especially with all the things that have affected this study in the last 4 years, meaning the study did not take into consideration, I'm not going to go in through a lot of things here, but I mean, the inflation, it did take in the increase in debt service. Of course, we've also increased the number of employees and salaries and things of that nature. And in addition to, is the really hard-hitting thing is the costs of projects that we wanted to do, and could this utility income support that? And we're finding out, when I did this initially, before we had done the operational expenditures and CIP for the budget, I did this at the end of April, prior to, and what the 5% did is, the study said, which is unrealistic now, it said that, the surplus would be at 561,000. Well, it's nowhere close to that. What it actually is, it keeps us in the black at 101,000. So that's the main thing here. So based on the findings, the 5% is definitely warranted. Should the sewer rates, the wastewater rates go up? There is a chart I put back there, and if it went up to 7%, we'd realize 210K is a surplus, and if it went up to 10%, 375K. We're in the midst of developing the whole budget. If council wanted to revisit this, I would not recommend a 10% increase, but if council wanted to realize maybe $150,000 to $200,000 more, maybe 7%, 8%, could be considered by council if they wanted me to bring this back in June. However, currently, as we look at the wastewater fund budget, it's very tight, but I will tell you that based on some of the key projects that we're looking at doing, obviously with inflation and these things being done now as opposed to 2 years ago, the prices went up. So we are in pursuit right now from the state for an SRF loan, and I have Tim working on this right now. He's already talked to the state. And when the determination on whether or not we get this SRF loan that's going to cover $1.5 million of these projects that June has down there at wastewater, you will find that out in August. We're going to put a package together. We're going to submit it to the state. Reason I'm telling you this is if we could get the 1.5 million, then it's going to definitely, and we're making adjustments and pushing some stuff out as we talked in the CIP meeting, then of course, we have to keep the 5% increase. This is going to tighten things up that could help us to achieve to achieve the revenue needed to cover our expenditures. So at this point, Mayor and Council, I'm basically telling you that, we're going for the SRF loan, and that's what those SRF loans are for. And Tim knows the requirements, and he's going to work on that package. We have to get it within 45 days prior to them making a decision, and this all gets brought up in August. And after talking to the state, pretty much if everything, passes the smell test or whatever, then we're more than likely being able to get this SRF loan. So I'm not really going to say anything else about this. I think all I could tell you is I believe that next year, where this study says 2.5%, and it's very far removed from when the study was done, we'll be looking at this a lot more differently in the sense, and coming to council saying 2.5% ain't going to cut it in 26, 27. And we're just going to have to see where we land. But, we could have a significant increase to get that utility income to cover the expenses in wastewater. So that's about everything I could say about this.
Thank you for going through that. I do remember this. Council. I mean, it's a discussion right now, but if you want to, the next meeting will be June, I think. you're saying, trying to get some direction from council on whether or not you want to bring that forward as we go into the budget.
Right, and the reason I'm saying is if by that time, in the next, 2 weeks, we would have rolled up the operating expenditures, moved in the CIPs, bring it together and see where we stand. And I am really counting on the SRF loan, and then based on that, see how vulnerable we are and fall short. And then, with that being said, I could reapproach council in June and say, council, we're going to need this extra $200K, and maybe go from a 5% to an 8% or something. But right now, I mean, the 5%'s locked in. It's part of the whole schedule. It's already been, that whole schedule was given to Coco 4 years ago. So, so that's the way I'd like to approach it. If council wants me to look at this after I roll up the budget and come to council, then I would be coming to council with a resolution to increase the wastewater by a few percent. Is resolution or ordinance, Anthony, to raise the...
The city council would have to adopt a resolution to
Right.
amend the rate schedule, but you need to keep in mind that under Florida law, you would be required to advertise a public hearing for a potential rate increase in the city of Coco's utility bill.
Right,
So there's like a
right.
30, 45-day lag there, so you can get it into the bill.
And I could do that, and also this could be done, it could be done in July with, what I could do is I could look and see where the numbers lay in the next couple of weeks. And if it does have to be done like Anthony's saying, then that gives me the time to know, and I'll talk to each council person one-on-one and say, we are going to need this, but then the resolution doesn't get done until July. But it also gives me the time to get it into the July 6th or 7th statement on the utility bill. So I'm honoring that process while I'm also knowing what's truly needed, because the world has really changed in the last 4 years. So if council wants me to, I could take that approach, and I could talk to each of you well before, June 17th, the next meeting. But then this wouldn't even be the resolution. I'd have to take it into July because, like Anthony says, I have to do the notice, which I would do, by the beginning of June, because I could call Coco once I do the numbers. So if council wants me to do that, I'll do that.
Yes, I think annually we've wanted to analyze it. City staff did that. The numbers are out. Okay, we're at 9:57, council. So I would like to just dig into this a little bit more. I really don't want to increase rates, ever.
And I believe that we could, I believe if we don't, Mayor, this year, and we can get I could get the SRF loan, then I think we'll make it through the year. It'll be tight, but we'll make it through the year with wastewater. But we do know that then the following year, there's no way that a 2.5% increase, not with the way everything's escalating, is going to be enough. And we'll have to take a real hard look at whether that should be then 7%, 10%. I mean, because we haven't really raised the rates. Last year we raised rate, was it 5% or 7.5% maybe?
We did a resolution there.
Yeah, well, it's based on,
Yeah.
actually, the schedule is in there. Let me just look at that and I'll be done. Yeah, it's an attachment too. So we did 10% in 2022, 7.5% in 23-24. This year we did 5%. Now we're talking to council about it's 5%, which we'll have to do. And that's the one we're talking about, whether or not you want me to dig deeper. And then in 26-27, when we do this, which would be next April or May, you're looking at 2.50, which is, time has gone by and what's happening. 2.50 is not going to be enough, and we could look at that at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want me to dig deeper in the next couple of weeks to kind of show you some numbers on where I believe will be the 5%, I understand you don't want to raise it, but
I would rather do that than property taxes, but I'm just making a general statement.
Right.
If we need to increase rates, absolutely. I'm not saying like that. So I want to just look a little bit
right. Well, let me take a hard look
at
at
this
this.
surplus, because that's way off. I mean,
Oh, well, yeah.
500,000, and so I'm questioning the study, how reliable it was.
Well, the criteria, I don't think, took in all the inflation and everything else that we experienced. So
Yeah.
they could not predict that. Why don't I dig deep in the next 2 weeks? I will call each council member and you, Mayor, and just tell you what my findings were. And then I could get a feel from each council member if they believe, say we have to go up to 8%, how many people actually feel that that's what they want to do. And we'll go from there.
Whatever you bring forward to all of us and you believe is the best, I think that's
Okay.
exactly as you said. We'll
I'll
all
take that
listen,
approach.
and you'll know if obviously no one wants it.
Okay. That's all I
We're
got.
just at 10 o'clock now, so that's the end of the discussion. If there's anything else, we have reports. If we wanted to extend for reports, we could, but
Only thing I want to make everybody aware of is this workshops on right moves that we are doing in conjunction with Space Coast TPO and FDOT. It's a 3-part series over the summer here in Cape Canaveral. I brought this up at the Safety Summit. Abby Holmes took the idea and ran with it and got TPO involved, and it's been fleshed out a lot better. So it's the first of its kind in the state, and it's happening here.
fantastic. Thank you. And I look forward to
You want that?
watching it.
June 7th is the first one.
It'll be here. Well, thank you for that. Well, if there's not anything else, Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Jackson, Mayor Pro Tem, John, thank you all. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned.